The Kenya Kwanza and Azimio MPs is expected to be less today, as MPs will be voting on each item, especially those that have been amended to allow the bill to be passed to the next stage. According to the chairperson of the Finance Committee in the National Assembly, Kimani Kuria, a total of 10 amendments have been proposed by the parliamentarians to the bill. He added that some of the recommendations are compatible with those proposed in the committee's report.
So far, the letters that have been written to the clerk and then the Speaker of the National Assembly, we have so far know about 9 amendments that have been done by several members of Parliament. And of course, some of those amendments are similar to the amendments that are in our report.
By close of business on Friday, there are more than 10 members from the Azimio side who had brought up proposals to amend the bill. I know the number could be higher now.
Kuria says he has already submitted the proposals to the National Treasury to be highlighted. In addition, Kuria says that the committee will hold a meeting today, this morning, to discuss the proposals as well as to see if they will be included in the bill.
We have forwarded these amendments to Treasury. We send them to Treasury for us to get the financial implication. Because remember, the finance bill is a money bill. And as per Article 114 of our Constitution, then money bills have to have the approval of the committee that owns the bill.
Among the 9 proposals presented before the committee, 7 have been presented by Azimio MPs. The opposition here seems to oppose the 16% tax on petroleum products. Opiyo Ndai is the minority leader in the National Assembly.
Through their proposals that we have brought forth to remove the increase in VAT and revert to the old 8% VAT.
Introduction of this tax on employees for the housing, affordable housing on employees. What does this mean? It means that employees will cease employing people. Why? Because they will not want to employ more people so that they pay more to the government as they are taxed.
Now, the National Treasury has released 31.4 billion shillings owed to the 47 county governments in arrears of the month of May, ending the perennial cash crunch in the devolved unit. The funds released are the final tranche of the 92 billion shillings that the national government owed the counties since March. Governors have been protesting against delays to release funds, claiming that services have been paralyzed. And President William Ruto lauded the newly signed Kenya-European Union partnership, saying it will boost trade and investment relations between the two entities. The pact, signed by EU Trade Commissioner Valdis Dombrovskis and Trade CS Moses Kuria, has been in the making for 7 years. Under the deal, Kenya's exports will now enjoy duty and quota-free market access to the EU.
We also commit that we will work with our East African partner states. We will work with the 28 African states that are members of the tripartite free trade agreement so that we can bring them on board this agreement subsequently, and hopefully we can also take this all the way to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area so that we can build a bigger market, build a bigger consensus, and be able to do more with the populations that exist between Europe and Africa.
Kenya's exports to the EU will be tariff-free from the day one after its entry into force. This means full and unhindered access to the EU market. This creates strong incentives for trade and for EU companies to invest in Kenya. The goal here is to support job creation and sustainable economic growth with a particular focus on micro, small and medium-sized enterprises.
The health CS and Hamish has ordered investigations into the alleged NHIF scandal that led to the loss of millions of shillings. The funds were siphoned by various hospitals in Nairobi and Meru counties through inflation of bills. The CS has further ordered EACC to work with NHIF and unravel how the syndicate operates. The CS has also suspended 8 NHIF branch managers and ordered for immediate closure of the affected hospitals. This is News. I am Dennis Assetto. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
If you go out of this country and come back the same person, then you have a problem. Buy land, 1 million. Put it there for 5 years. What's the purpose?
It'll have increased in value.
No, that's the thing. That's darkness. That's an eclipse. You don't do that.
I hope you don't believe that a hustler is a poor person or that all hustlers are poor. I've seen that conversation.
Tell us, who is a hustler?
Who's a hustler? Hustler is a person who is making a living through hard work.
Corruption in Kenya is a political accusation. The people who are actually corrupt are not pointed fingers at.
Kenya is not free. Kenya imeshikwa na mateka. It's under siege. Have you seen that lodge on Nyeri Road? Very high fence. You can't even
windows
sleep inside.
Up near the ceiling.
Yes. And if you walk there at midnight, you see bats the size of cows.
And when it rains, it doesn't rain on that building.
Yes.
When you're at All Saints and it's raining, it doesn't rain on that building.
The things people will believe.
Well. The situation.
Revenge is for children. It's for kids. When you grow up, you realize the best revenge you can take on somebody is to ignore them.
Now, I'm just new in politics. It is not everybody's cup of tea. That's why some people come in one term and that's it for them.
Political parties in this country do not have ideologies, whether luring or otherwise.
And that is the effect of corruption.
Any time an offense occurs anywhere in the country, it is the job of the Inspector General to look into it. Whether it's corruption, whether it's murder, whether it's betting, that is his job.
If we have chosen to be a corrupt nation, then we produce corrupt leaders. Everything then becomes chaotic that you cannot be able to change a nation.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
This is one of the hottest show that we can never miss in the morning, and it's a show that really gives a real situation in the Situation Room.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you guys so much. Nduthai, nice meeting you. Even beautiful in person more than in photos.
Say that again. Character is like pregnancy. You cannot hide it. People hiding here and there, but after 2-3 months, 5 months, now you realize, so that is why the attitude that you were showing us, you're pregnant.
It's like what my grandmother would say. You cannot pickpocket a naked man.
How's that? It's communal, isn't it?
No comment.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
When you're impeached, you're impeached. When you're sentenced, you're sentenced.
Madam Chief Justice.
Until the sentence is set aside.
Ukibeba vitu kwa roho utakufa. If you carry things in your heart, you will die.
You've had the luxury of living for 50 years and you cannot still explain yourself. Surely.
Nakuru Highway looks interesting. What's happening as you're trying to get into the CBD today? Jogger Road doesn't look too bad right about now. It's going to pick up, we know that, through the morning. And we're looking at the Thika Super Highway with a little bit of traffic as you're coming then in towards the Pangani underpass. We started Tuesday off right. Hopefully we can keep it just so. Where are you this morning? Running into any traffic? Let us know. It looks like it's light in most of the parts where we normally have trouble spots. Now would be the time to get out or wait it out until later. Let's talk on Spice FM KE on Twitter and keep things moving this morning.
This classmate is teacher, are you talking about the sheep or sheep goat?
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur.
Good morning, and how are you doing? Welcome to the show. It's The Situation Room on Spice FM and online. Mambo vipi ndu?
Vipi, mambo poa sana.
All righty.
How are you this morning?
This morning I'm fine.
Good.
Yes.
I'm happy to see you.
Are you really?
I am really happy to see you, actually.
So then you behave like you are.
How does that happen? Jump
I don't
out,
know.
Do a jig, sing. I'm happy
Do
to see
something that
you.
stands out,
What should I
Buana.
do? Like the cabaret? Should I, do the starfish? What?
Do this. What is that song?
Would you like me to walk like an Egyptian?
Abbas. That one. That one. Start singing.
I don't know.
The Emperor, the Conqueror, the Champion, the Lion is here.
Hey.
Zabu, Zabu. Ati, what do they say?
Nsobu, Nsobu.
Nsobu. It's not Zabu, Zabu.
No, trouble has landed. Hey.
Nsobu. Nsobu is trouble.
Nsobu.
Nsobu.
It's trouble.
So what do they say? Nsobu,
Make way for the
Nsobu.
game changer.
Okay.
Now I just want to dance.
Dance, baby, dance.
In my language, they say egu is play.
Mm-hmm.
Now te is to make. Tegu is like make play or make dance.
Mm-hmm.
So the literal translation is to dance.
Okay.
Acho temgu biko.
Chawa.
City. Good morning.
Morning.
The man from Tamu is here.
Utamu wa njugu
Ni
kuila moja moja.
What?
Eat it one by one.
Oh, not together.
Nasema pia utamu wa nini? Utamu wa uji.
What's udi?
Uji.
Oh.
Uji is gruel.
Yeah, like porridge, like really light porridge.
Yes, it's like very light porridge.
Okay.
Porridge actually isn't drunk. Porridge is eaten.
It is because it's thick. The real stuff is thick.
Yes.
Haya. Mambo City?
Fit, baba.
Very good.
Hawaje?
Mimi niko poa pia. Hali maridadi. Hali shuwari.
Kenya inazidi kuwa nchi ya ajabu. Kenya inazidi kuwa nchi ya ajabu?
Hapana.
Hapana?
Hapana.
Sio hivyo?
Kenya iko vile vile tu ilikuwa.
Ni ajabu pia. Pale.
Kenya nchi yetu ni nzuri. Tupendane sisi kwa sisi.
As opposed to sisi kwa nini?
Hi, let me tell you what we'll be discussing today. Good morning, everybody. So, what we'll be having is at 7 a.m., there's a man who is now a director of public communications at State House. His name is Gerald Bitok.
Okay.
He's been on this show before. He was a communication strategist and all those other things. Now he's Serikal. He'll be coming here as msemaji wa serikali to talk about the role of government communications, plan and delivery. Haya, that is 7 a.m. Listen to the government. At 8 a.m., we commemorate World Refugee Day 2023. Hope away from home. We'll be joined by two people. Boniface Odhiambo is the Economic Recovery and Development Coordinator at IRC. And the Program Officer at Pamoja Trust, Kinoti Irene. Those two join us at 8 a.m. At 9 a.m., we want to talk to you. Today is the day that the full National Assembly will be discussing the finance bill. So if they get to a point today, they discuss it fully and they vote clause by clause by clause. They introduce amendments. This is the crucial one. The one for last week was just drama. This is the one. So this is the one you want to look at, whether those 92 people will be in the house. Sawa.
Ni sawa.
Today. You have that list. Wakiingia wanasema ameingia present. Tick like that.
Actually, that is an onious task. It's difficult. You just need to count and determine who is not there. Because by their presence or their absence, they will have spoken volumes. Yes. If this bill is as crucial and as important as they have all led us to believe it is, we will see today. Their sincerity, their thoughts, we will see them today.
Haya. So hiyo mambo yote we'll be discussing later. Sawa. Alrighty. It's 16 minutes after 6. Ednah is doing like that, and the live stream is up. And she says, if you're online, say hello to all the people who you can say hello to, including Ednah. 17 minutes after 6. Let's take a look at the weather forecast.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
You think you can guess the year?
2007. That's when the theme song, that's when it premiered for the James Bond movies.
You're half correct. But in terms of guessing the year?
Okay, if not 2007, then 1963.
Oh, now you're just throwing things, eh? You're throwing the sufria and everything outside.
The Spice Drive. Big hair and the biggest hits from the best decade.
Tune in to the Spice Drive with me, Edward Quatch, 3 to 7 in the PM.
The Spice Drive, only on 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
At 14, highs of 24 today. It's 13 and cloudy in Nakuru, highs of 26. We'll see highs of 24 in a cloudy Nyeri at 14, and it's 14 and cloudy in Eldoret with a good highs of 24. 24 and mostly clear in Mombasa at 30. That will be the high recorded Tuesday. 30 will also be the high in a partly cloudy Malindi, currently at 25. It's cloudy at 20 in Kisumu, highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 27 in the mostly cloudy Kakamega at 18. 19 and cloudy in Kampala, highs of 26 and lows of 19, and 30 will be the high in a partly cloudy Dar es Salaam at 23. It's 7 degrees and clear in Johannesburg, highs of 17 and lows of 3, and partly cloudy in Lagos, going to highs of 30 and lows of 25. It's mostly clear at 22 in Kinshasa, highs of 31 and lows of 20. At 27, Tuesday afternoon in Beijing is sunny, highs of 34 and lows of 21. And the summer months have kicked in the Western Hemisphere. It's 18 degrees and mostly cloudy in Paris, highs of 25. We'll see highs of 24 in a mostly cloudy London, currently at 17. Monday night is partly cloudy and 19 in New York. Coming into Tuesday, we'll see highs of 24 and lows of 17.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
19 minutes after 6. Who is saying hello to Ednah?
Samuel Minor saying hello. Jambo Nyingi, Nico Mzima, J Nyinyi.
Pia sisi tuko wazima.
Baba Asumta says, happy good morning. Happy good morning. I've never heard that in my life.
It's a good one.
Happy good morning. I love it, actually. Maurice Ochieng says good morning. He's tuned in from Kasarani. And Collins says good morning. Zablon Ahpala says good morning to y'all. Jill Destiny says Nakuru Bangi area is locked. This place called Nakuru Bangi, I'm still very intrigued about the things that happen there. All right, a number of folks online saying, Assalamu alaikum, tuned in from Dubai. We see you. Julia Serongo is tuned in from Embu. Willis says good morning. Chris Mwaura, it's Chris Mora, says good morning, tuned in from Kenya. Kasina Kambua says good morning. Tuned in from Dubai as well. Good morning, good people from the UAE. Sophia Damery. Peter Munya says good morning to Eric Latiff and CT Muga, tuning from Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. Mashari and Jeru tuning from Portland, Oregon. And Naomi Kibet says, good morning, everybody. Feeling inspired. Earth is hard, though. Oh, yeah. Manchester United. Okay, sorry. Sir George Gashoire is tuned in from Manchester and says, Nicolok, the hot seat is my wake-up coffee. Karibu sana. Vesh Musanga tuned in from Malawi, specifically from Chitimba Beach. Beautiful place, I must say. Seen it. Steaming from the UAE. Yes, I know the temperatures are interesting right about now this time. Alex Vundi is tuned in from Ongata Rongai. James Mwangi says, another wonderful day with a wonderful team. Asante sana. Okay. Ruben Ngaruya is tuned in from New Jersey in the USA. He says he's represented in the House from the Kenya Embassy in Tehran. Number 1, Spice FM, Indio. Ni hao, ni hao. That's from somebody else. More comments is tuned in from Sydney, Australia. Mahe in the Seychelles. Cavalier says he's tuned in, and tuned in from Imara Daima is Manuel Emuru Garet. Good morning, everybody. Karibuni sana.
Karibu kila mutu. City. Are we still in that East African country called Kenya?
Yes, we are. That East African country neighbors the Indian Ocean, Somali, Ethiopia, Sudan. There's no air there.
I was going to say Sudan, yeah.
Uganda. That one. Yes, we are still in that country.
Okay.
Still has the same president. Still has the same deputy president.
Who's the Minister for Trade?
The gentleman is called Moses Kuria.
That's the country.
The Honorable Moses, well, no, Moses Kuria.
Moses Kiariwa Kuria.
Yeah, let's leave it at Moses Kuria.
Okay.
Yes. That gentleman.
Yeah.
The water of the river flows on without waiting for the thirsty man.
The water
of the river flows on without waiting for the thirsty man.
Can catch up with it, eh?
Well, it's up to you to decide. There are many options available for you. Now you decide which option works best for you.
All right. Good one. We'll be chambuering it as we go along. Headlines, Ndu?
On the front page of the Standard this morning, Azimio plans changes to Ruto tax bill. So today is D-Day in terms of the third reading of the finance bill. And we'll see. The opposition has planned a two-pronged approach to the finance bill, where they're pushing for 8 amendments that they hope will get support even from Kenya Kwanza legislators. If that fails, the coalition will move to court to block the implementation of the new taxation measures. All right. So folks at loggerheads, the pictures there of John Badi and Kuria Kimani. Let's see. Minister cracks whip at NHIF in fraud probe. Kacha! CS Nakumicha is saying, you people, under my watch, you will not do nonsense. We'll tell you that story in a bit. CT might have a word or two about that. Kenya cuts import duty on EU goods.
There's a Swahili word for what Ndu has just done.
Which is?
Uchokozi.
Bas.
I have no idea what you're talking about. 16 new grave sites in Shakahola. My God, you guys. Not graves, not bodies, grave sites. I'll tell you the numbers, and they're staggering in a bit.
Okay.
Daily Nation, moment of truth. Okay, so then Moses Kuria's face is everywhere. I can't forget. On the front page of the Standard, CS with a loose tongue attacks media. How now? Why are you like this? On the front page of the Daily Nation, moment of truth. That is today. Wetangula and Kingi have been accused. The minority leadership in Parliament has termed the two speakers unpopular for the decisions they have made, which they say outrightly favour the Kenya Kwanza administration and argue that the duo cannot be compared to their predecessors. 176 is the number of Kenya Kwanza MPs who voted to pass the finance bill during the second reading last week. All right, there's an edible oil scandal, and it seems like CS Moses Kuria is right in the middle of it and has not been, what can I say, cautious with his words in an attack on the media, and that story is playing out. That's another headline. That NHIF heist is there again, and the health CS has sent people home. He said, we're not allowing this kind of thing. Come and be going, please. We're not doing. Okay. Now, it is said that Ruto Gachagua plot to fix Wamushomba. Unhappy with the lawmakers' criticism of the agenda, the UDA's chiefs appear to be propping up a rival in former Githoguri MP Kago Walidia.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Deal grants Kenya access to EU markets. That was a conversation that was being had yesterday.
Now look at that. The headline in The Nation is?
Very interesting. That's what I was just about to say. The headline in The Nation is that Kenya cuts imports on EU goods.
That's the Standard.
Sorry, I'm the Standard, I beg your pardon. Kenya cuts imports duty on EU goods. This headline says, deal grants Kenya access to the EU market. Okay. Kenya exports will get immediate and unhindered access to the European Union.
Supposing that previously we didn't.
Supposing.
All right, let's keep supposing then.
Yes. So I'll tell you about that supposing later. That's what I have.
All right, the Business Daily. Shilling, that Kenya shilling, it breaches 140 to the dollar as the new CBK boss takes charge. How the markets welcomed Dr. Thuge to the central bank is by deciding that the shilling is still going to be dropping. The Kenya shilling has breached the 140 unit mark, trading against the US dollar, defying state interventions to stop its downward spiral in the first major test for the new CBK boss, Dr. Kamau Thuge. He is the 10th CBK governor. The continued slide of the local currency, which has now lost 13.5% of its value since the beginning of the year, has defied a CBK foreign exchange code that came with stringent penalties against dealers caught manipulating the forex market and a government-backed deal to import fuel on credit. This market will now be watching the new trick that Dr. Thuge, who served as the IMF mission chief to Botswana and Lesotho in the wake of blah, 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 many things in the wake of the global financial crisis, will pull from his bag to stem the slide. All eyes on all eyes on me.
Oh, wow.
The other headline is a company called TransCentury. At the height of Kibakinomics, TransCentury was the poster boy of Kibakinomics, you know? It's on the brink. And if the worst happens and it loses the current court battle it has mounted, it'll go down, and not alone. It will drag down another listed company with it, East African Cables, in what will dim the dreams of what was once Kenya's biggest investment firm. TransCentury's story starts some 26 years ago when an elite club of 26 businessmen, drawn largely from central Kenya, formed an investment firm which set out to change the landscape of investing, not just in Kenya, but the entire East Africa region. Now, there are issues.
No.
Yeah. It's under receivership, and so is East African Cables.
I'd be interested to know what happened.
That's the story now in the Business Daily today. From Kibaki-era deal-making machine into receivership battle. The story of TransCentury. Ticker headlines. Why government did not convert 537 billion shilling pending bills into bonds. You remember that's what Ruto was kept saying. You know what? We are going to securitize these loans. Or this thing called the pending bill will securitize it by giving people bonds. The government has shelved that plan to convert pending bills into a bond, following concerns that it would significantly increase the pile of debt at a time that the country's position has been classified as being at high risk of debt distress. The other headline, Kenya Airways resumes daily New York flights. State orders lifestyle audit for NHIF staff in graft crackdown. City? This star.
I didn't get the star today.
Oh my goodness.
I think it came after I had left.
Oh no.
But there's something that I find very refreshing. Remember we had the pleasure of the company of the governor of Mombasa, Abdul Swamad Nasir. And among the things he mentioned was how it is he's hoping to ensure that those who are downtrodden, those who are unable to fend for themselves, at least have easy access to healthcare. Now, it looks like he has taken his word to the next step, and he has turned them into deeds. There's an article on page 8 of the Standard. Nasir launches free healthcare program, where the governor was issuing out free NHIF cards to 15 Mombasa county residents. His hope is to hit 90,000 by the end of the year. I'll tell you more of the story later on.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's a good one.
It's a good one, huh?
Yep.
Even me, I thought it was a good one because at least it's happy. Then on page 12 of that same paper, there is a story of Museveni.
Yoweri Kaguta.
None other. President Yoweri Museveni, who took power in a bloodless coup against General Tito Okello in 1986. Okay? Now, the discussion is around his health. The discussion is around the role he has in East Africa. And of course, the unstated discussion is the succession story. There are those who are arguing that once President Julius Nyerere of Tanzania had passed away, there was an intellectual void in East Africa, because Julius Nyerere was an intellectual giant. Yes. Now, I will tell you more of that story later on.
Okay.
Yes.
29 minutes to 7. Let's take that break so that Ndu can tell us about the traffic right now. And then City will tell us about those stories later on.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Yolanda Mulo and DJ Absolute. When the gang is together, you know it's
Sugar and Spice.
Great vibes, conversations, a lot of humor. I like to say we don't give an F, we give 3 Fs.
You and I are in this relationship, so it is me to tell you who. Yeah.
When you ask a chick, how many guys have you been in? She's like, including you. If it's fun, it's funky, it's fresh, you're definitely going to catch it here. I don't know what you do every day from 11 a.m. to 3 o'clock. If I were you, I'd tune in to Spice FM 94.4.
I want you on my team.
So does everybody. And building up on Jogger Road as you're getting out towards the city, Landis doesn't look too bad. If you're coming in from that general direction, now would be the time to get out towards Haile Selassie without too much of a hold up. It's bumper to bumper on the Thika Superhighway right after that Utali Drift, taking you through towards the Pangani Underpass. Looks like it's going to be that way for some time. The beginnings of morning traffic are on Kiambu Road, and we're seeing movement on Waiaki Way as well. Are you coming in from Limuru Road? Get out now, folks, before it tightens up, because it is going to happen. Let's look back on the Thika Superhighway, where there's some traffic coming in from the Garden City Mall, and it's going to go all the way through towards the Pangani Underpass. And it's going well out towards Githurai. So traffic on the Thika Superhighway is doing that thing this morning. It's also doing the business on Manyanja Road as you're crossing over Outer Ring, then getting in towards Jogo Road. Apart from that, you should be fine for now. Mombasa Road is going to pile up, and it's going to veer off towards North Airport Road, going out towards Embakasi and the Eastern Bypass. Apart from that, you should be able to get into the CBD without too much trouble. Let us know if there is. Spice FM KE on Twitter.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings
27 minutes to 7. There's a gentleman called Francis Gidaka. Remember Francis Gidaka? He worked here, and then he moved over to go farming in Mwea.
Yes.
Remember Francis?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Francis is tuned in this morning all the way from Mwea. He's a big farmer.
Baraka.
Not a pig farmer.
Baraka Mills. That is his business.
His business is called Baraka.
It's called Baraka. And if he's listening, he's laughing and saying, yes, that is correct. It's called Baraka.
Bas.
Yes.
Francis, good morning. Hiya, Ndu.
Detectives discover 16 graves as autopsies on 94 bodies are set to begin. The fourth phase of exhumation to commence after the third round of autopsies. Government chemist collected 93 DNA samples from the victims' families. The Shakahola horror continues. Detectives exhuming bodies of victims of starvation cult in the Shakahola forest, Kilifi County, have taken a break to allow for the third round of autopsies to be conducted from tomorrow at the Malindi Sub-County Hospital mortuary. The autopsies on 94 bodies are meant to decongest the overstretched morgue. Imagine how packed that morgue is right now.
But
Yes.
there are the containers from Red Cross as well, which are holding the bodies.
Yeah, but now what they're saying is that the other ones, the 94, are at the morgue. This is not even talking about the ones that had been there before.
Where?
Okay? Yesterday, homicide detectives and forensic experts investigating the Shakahola Doomsday Cult revealed that they discovered 16 new mass graves suspected to contain more bodies. Now remember, they're taking a break, so they have not started that exhumation, but there have been 16 more. And remember that one of the mass graves that they had found a couple of weeks ago had up to 17 bodies. One. Okay?
Yeah.
Now they found 16 more mass graves.
Yeah.
So you shudder to imagine what could happen when the exhumation of those ones begins next week. They've said we have about 16 mass graves and the number of bodies is expected to increase, according to a detective who spoke on condition of anonymity.
That one.
The bodies are believed to be of followers of Pastor Paul Mackenzie, who reportedly instructed them to starve themselves to death in order to meet Jesus. Since the exhumation began on April 21st, 336 bodies have so far been retrieved from the forest where Mackenzie has a home, with the highest number in one single day being 29. Many bodies were exhumed at the Mugambi area, about 3 kilometers from the controversial pastor's homestead. In this area, the homicide team exhumed up to 17 bodies in a single mass grave, mostly of children and women. Mackenzie allegedly told his followers that burying children in his home was for him to identify with Jesus, the command which he gave to let the little children come unto me. As the third autopsy kicks off, pathologists and forensic experts are working tirelessly to match the DNA to their kin so the bodies can be released for burial. The government chemist collected 93 DNA samples at the morgue and transported them to Mombasa for medical procedures. According to a senior chemist at the government the DNA procedure was being done in Mombasa County because Kilifi does not have a DNA sequencing system. Kithure Kindiki, the Cabinet Secretary for Interior, said the fourth phase of exhumation would commence immediately after the third round of autopsies. He was speaking during a church service in Muranga on Sunday. He assured the government would exhume all the bodies in the forest. And he says there are still many mass graves in the forest, and we are yet to finish that job. It does not matter how many people we have lost. We will give the full statistics, and we will not hide the truth or leave anybody dead inside that cursed forest.
My goodness. You know, the question that I was thinking about the other day is, will we ever, as a country, get the opportunity to find out what happened here? Remember that attempt by the president to form a commission of inquiry, a judicial commission of inquiry, that was then challenged by Raila Odinga in court, and that matter has just been, going through the motions, and you wonder, what exactly is happening here?
If I may add to the question you've asked, we've had commissions of inquiries before. What have we seen as the eventual outcome of this commission of inquiries? The best we've seen is reports are tabled.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's just about it, isn't it?
Well, in terms of solutions and closure, unfortunately, it's been inconclusive.
Those reports having been tabled, if the matter didn't end there, if we subjected those reports to further debate, then the closure,
action.
Yes, an action. The closure you speak of may be found. See, I don't think that the idea of a commission of inquiry in and of itself is something bad. No. At least an opportunity is given for the matter to be investigated.
I agree.
Yes.
I agree. And I think what a commission of inquiry then would do is it allows people who were affected to speak.
Absolutely.
Yes.
At the very least, it gives them that opportunity to come out and talk and what they know, to relieve those moments of, okay, this is the person that we know, this is what happened, this is how they left, this is
look at what
how we
happened
communicated.
Look at what happened in Rwanda after the genocide, and then you had the Gashaga courts, and people came out and were able to say, look, it was my neighbor who hacked my family to death.
Yeah.
It is you cannot describe the weight that it removes from the tension in that situation where people are actually able to speak out.
Yep.
Because keeping it inside will just bring another situation of conflict. So there's a reason why they say do it.
Consider South Africa. They went through a similar process.
Yep.
Do you know that you can live in the same country as someone and yet you have absolutely no idea what they're going through?
You can live in the same house with somebody.
Yes. You can live in the same house, absolutely true, and you have no idea
what they're going through.
Now, this commission of inquiry enables you to hear not reported speech, you get to hear from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Absolutely.
So you know. So there is no not knowing. Do you know that, for instance, when we talked about how it is that the blacks in America, in the US of A, were marginalized, there were people who lived there, predominantly white people, who didn't know the details of the suffering that people were actually going through. They honestly did not know.
Mm.
And when confronted with it, mixed reaction, disbelief, shock. And you're thinking, is this really happening here? And actually, indeed, it was actually happening there.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Why do you think they had the Nuremberg trials? The Nuremberg trials gave people an opportunity to actually understand how Nazi Germany industrialized murder. Meaning you methodically set it up so that people get gassed, get executed methodically. When I say industrial, it's because of the numbers. It's like an assembly line. In the absence of situations that were created where people could actually talk about it in detail, you do not find closure.
No, you don't. And you know what you do is that you have a false sense of security. It's false. You have a false sense of peace. There's a false sense of calm that with the snap of the fingers can actually go.
Things erupt again.
Very quickly.
Things would erupt again. That's why we lost. The political leadership decided to throw away the opportunity with the post-election violence, where there was an opportunity to have a local process of dealing with post-election violence cases.
Yes.
That would have been a moment for people to actually talk about it, talk about what happened, where you'd have all those small cases where, you can even localize them and say, go to Kuresoi, go to Molo, go to Burnt Forest, go to Eldoret, have people talk and say, my neighbor.
All the hotspots.
Yeah.
This is what happened, and this is the effect of what happened. I was left with nothing, or I forgive them. I said, it's okay, I move on. That would be a big thing.
Eric, you have actually hit the nail. This is not the proverbial head. This is the actual head, because that matter of post-election violence is still festering.
It is.
When we had those mandamanos, and remember there was a story of how shops were looted. One of my Uber cab drivers happened to be among those whose shops were looted. Now, this gentleman, his family, he grew up in the Rift Valley. He grew up there. He was among the people who had to leave because of the post-election violence. And he came and settled in Nairobi. He says some of his relatives are still there, and he goes to visit. His father is still alive. His father went back. Now, this is a man who came to Nairobi, settled, started a new business. Uber is just one of his businesses.
Yeah.
His entire shop, was looted. Now, you listen and you say, now, surely.
The mandamanos for this year.
Yes.
We're not talking about.
No. I'm talking about this year, mandamano, this year. What? How many times must a person be disenfranchised?
What? You sit down and ask God, okay, so.
Surely. See the other.
No, this guy. Surely. No, this guy.
What do you want?
Huh? He lost before, he's losing a second time.
Hey.
Now, when we do not discuss these painful matters openly and we don't allow for a forum for their discussion to take place, they fester.
Yep.
And the problem is, when they then erupt, you cannot tell the form in which they will erupt.
No, you can't.
People,
and almost, as crazy as it sounds saying it, you almost can't blame people for the manner in which it will erupt. You can't. You can't say, temper it down a little bit. Why are you so crazy? You don't know.
We need to actually embrace that thing. Embrace opportunities to talk. Because
about painful things,
people don't necessarily, in fact, just like we've been told here by very many judges and judicial officers and lawyers who've come here on Justice Thursdays, many times people are not going to court because they want to punish you.
No.
They just want you to recognize and acknowledge what you've done to them. That's it.
And when you acknowledge,
they
are willing to let it go.
Yeah.
And that's why in many instances they're told, do you think you can talk about this? Why don't you take a moment? Go out there and talk about it.
Yes.
And there are many instances, and the talking about it brings about a solution.
It solves very many issues, and moves on Yeah. So I think we need to now keep focusing as we talk about stop of the Shakahola process. Let's also look at are we going to get that opportunity to have a moment to talk about it? Let these people who've gone and registered at the Red Cross desk, 600 people are missing.
My God.
Who are these people? Who are they?
They have relatives.
Yes.
We need people to talk. Some of them have children. Some of them have parents. Some of them have husbands. Some of them have wives. When you hear from the people who've been affected, then you get the gist of the entire story.
You get it.
Right now, it's a story of something that has happened somewhere in Kilifi County, and bodies are. We keep. It's an inanimate subject, but the moment the individuals who are affected and those who are part of it speak, then you realize the enormity of it.
Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about health. So I have two health stories. Start with your Mombasa story.
Well, yes.
What's happening in Mombasa County?
Well, this is one of these stories that gladdens the heart. Huh? This is what is quoted as having been a pledge that the governor of Mombasa, Abdul Samad Nasser, made. He said, we want everybody in the county to register with NHIF so that they can be treated free of charge. Okay? Now, he took it a step further. When he was here, he said, I am going to make sure that I find a way of enabling people who can't afford it to have these cards. Okay? The article headline is, Nasser launches free health care program. Okay? And he's talking about how it is when he was at the Coast General Teaching and Referral Hospital in Mombasa. That was yesterday. Okay? He asked residents to register for NHIF using the national ID cards and that they will produce whenever they seek treatment in the county. But while doing so, remember he had said there are people who will not be able to afford. And he also said, the referral hospital, which we refer to as Coast General, caters for the entire region, not Mombasa County. Taita Taveta, Tana River, Lamu, Kwale, it caters for all these people. So that the people of Mombasa County can benefit, he said, I will ensure that I have a program where people who are unable to afford
are supported by the county.
Now you may ask, how do you know this? Well, actually, when you take a census gives you very many details. But then the National Bureau of Statistics also gives you, the details are available. You know the people.
You know the indigents.
You do. So this is what he has launched. The service is unique because Mombasa residents will walk into any health center and access free medical care without removing a single cent. Is this not a wonderful thing?
It's a very good thing.
Yes.
Speaking of NHIF, I have an NHIF story. But before that, let's go to Kakamega. You remember that monolith of a thingy that was done by the former governor?
Yes.
The huge level 6.
Supposedly incomplete, yes.
Yeah. That thing could even have been level 10, man. A 750-bed capacity facility that stalled in 2020 after the contractor China Railway Jiangsu Engineering East Africa abandoned the site over unpaid dues. Now, President William Ruto was in Kakamega over the weekend. Remember that? And in one of the meetings that he attended, Governor Fernandez Baraza was present. Now, Ruto said, Governor Fernandez Baraza has reached out to me to complete the hospital. I have challenged him to look for 300 million, and I will top it up with another 200 million from the supplementary budget.
Million or billion?
Me.
Okay, just we talk B a lot here, so I'm just thinking.
Kufikia, nimeambia Governor Barasa atafute 300 million na mimi nitafanya namna kufikia mwezi wa 10 nitatafuta 200 million. Alafu kwa ile budget ya mwaka ile ingine nakuja nitaweka 1 billion next year for equipping the facility because I want it to be operationalized. So the government has basically pledged, Ruto has pledged 1.2 billion shillings for this facility so that it can become operational.
Okay. It's coming from which budget? Supplementary?
The first 200 million, supplementary budget October, ingie hapo. Okay, you see now already the estimates have passed. So it's not there. So tutatoa pesa hapa na pale fanya 200 million. And then, come the next financial year's budget, 1 billion will go into. You see the next financial year's budget will be 5 trillion shillings big.
6.
What is 1 billion?
Let's just focus
What's
on
1 billion
6.
there? Nothing.
It's 1 billion there. They'll get NHIF, the story that was in the Nation yesterday about how these people would go and conduct what they would call free medical camps in Meru County, targeting elderly people who have bone issues and joint aches, right? So they come in, they get tested, and they find, oh, you have arthritis. Now you may need 1 or 2 operations here and there. But they are brought to hospitals and facilities in Nairobi where they are treated. Some of them are operated on, and then they go home. What happens is that the NHIF is billed for all those things. Some actual, others fictitious. That brought an issue with the NHIF itself yesterday, and the health CS, what's her name? Susan Nakhumicha. She summoned the bosses of NHIF. He said, what? Why? How is it? How can this be happening? No. And what she said was the NHIF managers in those areas, first of all, number 1, suspension. Number 2, I have instructed NHIF board to start investigations and take action against culpable staff. They share that report with me within 48 hours. Okay. Number 3, those medical facilities, Jeki Medical Center in Meru, St. Peter Orthopedic and Surgical Hospital in Kiambu, Afya Bora Annex in Mwea, Kirinyaga, Joy Nursing Home and Maternity in Kamukunji, Nairobi, Afya Bora in Mwea, Jeki in Kobo, and Imenti South Meru, Beirut Pharmacy and Medical Center and Amal Hospital Limited. All those ones, suspend them immediately now. From operation. Funga, Sai. If you have people that you have admitted, transfer them to other facilities. And I've instructed the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Board and the Pharmacy and Poisons Board to carry out thorough investigations into this matter. I want a report in 48 hours. Interim report. Okay? Hii mambo hatuwezi kubali. Now, when you listen to that story, on the face of it, it sounds like, good action being taken and all.
Yeah, very fast.
I have serious issues with it. Issue number 1. Just like we saw in that hospital in Ruai. Remember the Ruai hospital about issues of vaccine?
Yes.
Because some vaccines that had been taken to that hospital were being given out at a free medical camp in Murang'a. So the health minister decided shut down the hospital. Entire Ruiro, it's called Ruai Medical something.
And people who were coming there for treatment.
Yes.
I remember that story.
Remember that story?
Yes.
Very well.
And the issues we raised here.
Yes, we did.
How do you transfer people from who are admitted to a health facility to another one? Which other one?
And remember,
Where is the other one?
remember we had COVID then.
Yes.
No, but even now she's saying the same thing.
Now she has said the same thing. Shut this thing immediately. Transfer patients to other facilities. Which other facility?
Where are they going?
No. Surely, don't you investigate first? Okay, there have been reports.
And the issue here is not about malpractice in the hospital. It's not that this hospital is not hygienic. It's not any of those issues where the people who are in that hospital right now are at threat, are facing risk. It is because of claims and fraud, a suspected fraud. What does that have to do with the facility? If you have issues with the doctors, bring other doctors to that facility.
Actually, when somebody rushes to shut down facilities, it's an extreme action, and you have to ask yourself, why this extremity?
Yeah, what exactly are you doing?
Do you want us to understand that you know what you're doing and that you're taking such matters seriously?
Yes.
And if indeed you are, we thank you, but is this the way to deal with these things?
Sure.
But this is what it does for you, is that it shows as though you're doing something.
You're
in charge, you're in control, and the only way for you to deal with this thing don't tolerate nonsense. And the only way for you to show that you're actually dealing with this thing is that all of you should come and go.
Actually,
first, and then now we'll deal.
The ghost of Kemsa isn't dead. It's still lurking in the background.
It's still very much alive.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, maybe as a minister, you do not want it to be said that you do not take action. But the question is this the action you should take on such a matter? Because you are going to disenfranchise patients who have nothing to do with this matter. Yeah. Why don't you look at the details and find out who the culprits are and then deal with the culprits?
Yep.
Because it takes work.
Yeah, but
I don't know you're understanding what I'm saying.
I have understood perfectly.
All that
is too much work to think and to ask why. Where I can just clear everybody out and say go home, then after some time I can reinstate you. Do you think that even as they've told people to go home, there's anything they'll do? You just know, CS has acted, right?
Yeah.
Actually,
you see what will
yourself-
happen, because CS has said these things, the local health guys, first of all, the board will have to take immediate action to show CS has said.
So we're doing something.
So can you imagine doctors and nurses and everybody who works in this facility hears, okay, you've been shut down, so let's go home. So we're not coming to work tomorrow. So
now?
patients, you have a patient in that facility and then you've just heard, oh, this hospital has been shut down. Can you imagine the anguish of the family members thinking, oh my God, so what do we do?
What do we do now? Where do we go? There's a reason why that facility was selected.
Yes.
Many reasons why.
Actually, there's a reason why that facility was licensed to offer the services it offers.
Yep.
All right? There has been a complaint. There are issues that have been raised. Have we actually gotten to the heart of the matter?
No.
Have we understood the root of these problems?
No.
Really?
No.
Because when you shut it down, you know what you've done? You've shut down everything that could have led to us understanding what actually happened.
It's true.
That's what you've done.
And it's like taking a sledgehammer to go at a mosquito.
Completely.
When you need to put the net up and see where you can trap the mosquito.
Second issue that I take here is, why does the cabinet secretary have to take this action herself? Why does she have to make these pronouncements herself? NHIF has a board, it has management, right?
It does, doesn't it?
Yes. And as she was speaking, the chair of the board, Engineer Kamau, I saw him flanking her on one side, the acting CEOs on the other side. So you ask yourself, this facility, does it get its daily operational instructions from Afia House, or what's the function of having a board? Why do you have a board if the board cannot take action? If the board cannot actually have looked at this thing and said, all right, so this is what we're going to do. This is a simple managerial administrative action.
But you know,
the CEO suspends the officers, not even the board. The board instructs the CEO.
Why
to
don't
take
you
action.
take that question further and ask? Within the Ministry of Health, you have a director. We have several directors, but you have a director. You have 2 PSs.
Yes.
So, what are their roles? Why does this thing move from this? This is not the biggest issue we've had to deal with in the health sector. And it bypasses everybody, NHIF board, director, PSs, straight to
the
CS.
CS.
Why?
And the CS is the one who says, I have directed all NHIF managers to be suspended.
No.
Come on. Do you have to take... That's
So that's actually not her job.
It's
no, it is not her job. That is the job of the board at NHIF. It is not her job. It is not her to suspend. Why then do you have a board?
What's the purpose of having a board?
The board, yes.
Aye.
Why not just suspend the board and let the Ministry of Health handle these things? Yes, exactly.
The board has several representatives, okay? Yes, there are people who represent the CS. There's a board member who represents the CS and another one. There's a board member who represents medical professionals. Kenya Medical Association president sits on the board.
Yes.
There's a board member who represents employers, FKE, they sit on the board.
There's a board
There's
member.
KOTU, they sit on the board.
Yes.
All those people are members of a board and they are independent. You cannot be directing the KMA president who represents his members on what to do.
Or FKE or KOTU.
Yeah.
But that's what has just...
That's what's happening
That's
here.
what has happened. They've all been directed.
It's complete interference.
Not only that, you see, this is what waters down our institutions. Because you set up a structure and you have people who are supposed to hold the day-to-day management and the managers accountable. And then the person in charge of the parent ministry now wades in. So you have disempowered these people completely.
You think the manager will ever listen to you as a board member? Unajua CS alisema. CS alituambia. You're asking at a board meeting, you're asking how did this happen? CS said.
Yeah, or if somebody asks you, explain it, you say, Apana.
Uliza CS.
You wait and see. The CS's name is going to pop up again. This issue of KEMSA that seems to have gone away.
It will come.
Wait and see. It'll be brought in. But you see, even when it's brought in, you can't accept that is the truth. You have to wait until an investigation has been done so you determine exactly what is true and what isn't.
Indeed.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is New Time. Dennis Aseto. A fierce debate is expected in Parliament today when members of Parliament will debate the Finance Bill 2023, where it will be read for a third time in the third reading stage. Differences between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio MPs is expected to be less, as MPs will be voting on every item, especially those that have been amended to allow the bill to be passed to the next stage. According to the chairperson of the Finance Committee in the National Assembly, Kimani Kuria, a total of 10 amendments have been proposed by the parliamentarians to the bill. He added that some of the recommendations are compatible with those proposed in the committee stage.
So far, the letters that have been written to the clerk and then the Speaker of the National Assembly, we have so far know about 9 amendments that have been done by several members of Parliament. And of course, some of those amendments are similar to the amendments that are in our report.
By close of business on Friday, there were more than 10 members from the Azimio side who had brought up proposals to amend the bill. I know the number could be higher now.
Kuria says it's already submitted the proposals to the National Treasury to be highlighted. In addition, Kuria says that the committee will hold a meeting this morning to discuss the proposals as well as to see if they will be included in the bill.
We have forwarded these amendments to Treasury. We send them to Treasury for us to get the financial implication. Because remember, the finance bill is a money bill. And as per Article 114 of our Constitution, then money bills have to have the approval of the committee that owns the bill.
Among the 9 proposals presented before the committee, 7 have been presented by Azimio MPs. The opposition is opposing the 16% tax on petroleum products. Opiyo Ndai is the minority leader in the National Assembly.
Through the proposals that we have brought forth to remove the increase in VAT and revert to the old 8% VAT.
Introduction of this tax on employees, for the housing, affordable housing on employees. What does this mean? It means that employees will cease employing people. Why? Because they will not want to employ more people so that they pay more to the government as they are taxed.
The National Treasury has released 31.4 billion shillings owed to the 47 county governments in arrears for the month of May, ending the perennial cash crunch in the devolved units. The funds released are the final tranche of the 92 billion shillings that the national government owed the counties since March. Governors have been protesting against delays to release the funds, claiming that services have been paralyzed. And Health CS Susan Dahomich has ordered investigations into the alleged NHIF scandal that led to the loss of millions of shillings. The funds were siphoned by various hospitals in Nairobi and Meru counties through inflation of bills. The CS has further ordered EACC to work with NHIF and unravel how the syndicate operates.
I have also directed that a preliminary report be shared with me within 48 hours by NHIF board. Further, I have directed the ministry's division in charge of standards and regulations to take action immediately and give me a report. I have further made a special request to EACC to liaise with NHIF and carry out comprehensive investigations, and I hope this can be availed within the next 7 days.
The CS has also suspended 8 NHIF branch managers and ordered for immediate closure of the affected hospitals.
I hereby also instruct the Kenya Medical Practitioner and Dentist Council, the Pharmacy and Poisons Board to commence investigations immediately and conclude within 48 hours on the following facilities: J. Kim Medical Center in Meru Central, St. Peter's Orthopedic and Surgical Hospital in Kiambu County, Afya Bora Hospital in Mwea Kirinyaga, Joy Nursing and Maternity Hospital in Malewa Street, Kamukunji, Afya Bora Hospital Annex in Wanguru, Mwea, J. Kim Hospital, Ngupu, Imenti South, Beirut Pharmacy and Medical Center, and Amal Hospital Limited.
Media Owners Association has called on President William Ruto's intervention over the continuous misconduct of some officers in his administration. Chairperson Agnes Kalechi said such state officials like Tracy S. Moses Kuria are a poor reflection of the president's office and the executive. Meanwhile, KUJ and KEG also condemned Kuria's recent attacks on local media. This even as Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has told of Trade CS Moses Kuria over his remarks to stop advertising, with some media houses saying that they'll allow the media to continue doing their job. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Oseto. Good morning.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
All right, after 7 o'clock, traffic building in different parts. We see that it has increased significantly on the Thika Superhighway. We saw it coming in from Githurai all the way through towards the Pangani underpass. Now is when we see traffic building has built up on Kiambu Road, and it's bumper to bumper all the way from just past the DCI through towards Muthaiga Square. We're going to have to contend with that for a couple of hours right about now. Jogo Road packed as usual. A little bit of traffic on Gunda Road, and it's touching on Outer Ring. North Airport Road has built up and it's going out towards Outer Ring and then towards the Eastern Bypass. We're looking at traffic then coming in on Gong Road, Gitanga Road, Naivasha Road, all of that starting to pile up, going out towards Lavington and then on to James Gishuru. Waiyaki Way not looking too bad, not doing too poorly, getting into the CBD. Let's keep an eye on things and see what happens in half hour or so. Talk to us in the meantime on Spice FM KE on Twitter.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start
7
your
after 7.
day.
Good morning, and how are you doing? Welcome to the second hour of the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. On this 20th day of June 2023, reminding you the importance of getting your own walking alarm system and panic button wherever you are. And that is what the 911 group app is all about, right? So you're somewhere, you're driving, vehicle breaks down, and you need emergency rescue services. This is what you do. Open your app. You get in touch with the 911 group app. They can tell exactly where you are. They dispatch a team to come. If you need a flatbed, they bring the flatbed. They sort you out. If maybe it was just a small issue like the battery terminal, they sort you out. If they can something they can fix there, they fix. If there's something that requires evacuation, they do that. If you're in any other kind of emergency, they also sort you out. Our next guest requires little introduction. He's been here before. Gerald Bitok is a communication strategist. He is now Director of Public Communications at State House. Good morning, Gerald.
Good morning to you, sir.
How are you doing?
Very well.
Eh?
As you can see, it's a bit chilly though in Nairobi. There seems to be some bug moving around, but yeah, we're keeping well.
Very good.
How are you?
Very good. We are very well. Yes, welcome.
Thank you
to
so
the
much.
hot seat of the Situation Room.
Asante.
Now,
I can already feel it.
You are now properly occupying the hot seat. Previously, you were, one of us with all
amicus.
You're amicus.
Still, I think emotionally, I'm still there. I've not really transitioned much. So I think we can still relate so much with the things that we've been doing in the past. And
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to a great conversation.
We will have
it was
a
a
great
pleasure to have you. To have you also. Me, I'm also having you.
Yes.
I listen to you every single day, and I also appreciate what you guys are doing. And I think you giving us the right space in terms of media, where everybody feels safe to come and have a conversation with Kenyans. And I think that's the right ideology of journalism and is the right spirit of media and communication. And I really appreciate it. I listen to you every single day, every single morning. I'm always listening.
Very good.
Yeah.
City?
Yes, please. No, I'm listening to Brother Gerald.
Tumepambwa bana.
No, it's very good. Thank you very much for the kind words, Gerald. Very good.
Yeah, the day's proverb. This week's proverbs, Jared, are from the country called Kenya.
You may have heard of the country. It's in East Africa.
Sounds familiar.
First, the water of the river flows on without waiting for the thirsty man.
The water of the river flows on without waiting for the thirsty man.
No, doesn't wait.
Jared, what do you make of this proverb? What's your interpretation?
I think it sounds the same with the fact that time will always pass, whether you're making use of it or not. And there are things that will never wait for your need. And that's how life is simply structured. That life does not appreciate entitlement. A lot of people think that they're entitled to things or things can wait for them to be ready. And, things will always happen. Time will pass. The river will flow by. Whether you're thirsty or not, it doesn't care.
Yeah.
And maybe by the time you're thinking you want to service your thirst, the river stopped flowing. So I think it brings us to the reality of life that things will always keep moving. You will grow older. Time will pass you by. Opportunities will pass you by, whether you're making use of them or not. So I think it's a very, I've never heard about it, but I think it's really, it gets you into deep thought about the perspective of life and how much you can do and how much you can also wait.
That's true.
Yeah.
Very good one.
I hope I'm right, City.
My friend, you have given us your opinion, and that's what we wanted. And we agree with your opinion. Yes.
Completely, all the time, always.
Politically correct.
Well, you see, the beauty of Proverbs is you talk about it and interpret it as it resonates with you.
Okay.
And the truth is, someone else listening to this will be able to give us or contextualize it in a way that none of us would have thought of, but that's how it resonates with them. So you are 100% right.
Okay.
So, Gerard, Director of Public Communications at State House. Is this a new position or was it there before you were appointed to it?
One thing about the need for communications has kept shifting, depending on what exactly is happening at that point. I might not authoritatively state that it has been there for how long it has been, but I know that office has been in existence because the government has always needed to speak to the public. It's generally just about communicating a heart between the government and the people that maintains the base, the feeling and the pulse of the nation. And we have two types of communication. There is a political communication, often that talks about all the other political things, the president is doing this and that. Then when it comes to public communication, it's about telling the people what's going on with government, the plans that government has, the march that government is doing. It's literally keeping the government and the people in one path. For them understanding that this is what is going on. This is what the government is doing, this is what it promised it was delivering. So majorly it's about policy and how much is being done. We try to stay away from politics. I'm a very good man, I'm a gentleman. I know you'll miss the politician in me, but now I've changed. I'm a new man. So we speak much more to the emotions of the people.
Are we witnessing a born-again Gerald Bitov?
Scales falling off
There's
the
no
eyes
limit to getting born again. I've just got born again. I don't know when I'll get born again another time. But yes, this takes me to a new space where of course, you have to also watch what you have to say because the public communication is about appealing to the public emotions and keeping them in touch with what the government is doing, not antagonizing them or not fighting with Raila Odinga or not fighting with the next person. It's just simply about stating the position of government in terms of delivery. So that is where we are, policy and delivery.
So when you communicate, basically we take it that this is the government position on this particular matter.
Not necessarily.
And that's why you have to be careful.
Yes, exactly. Because I can be quoted. Tomorrow you can be hosting the president and you ask him, Gerald Bitoko was on our show, and they say that you've been sleeping on the left side of the bed. Is that true? And it becomes an authority. So I literally have to speak under the president. I cannot precede the president.
What's the difference between this role and government spokesman?
Government spokesman is about day to day. I cannot speak for PSC, of course, because those are the people who determine who does what. But government spokesperson is a day to day activity on what the government, what is happenings in, let's assume during Shakaola, the person would have come out to speak about the state of the nation and what exactly government was doing without being a government spokesperson. I will not do it myself. But I'm technically rooted on policy and delivery.
Okay.
Yes.
When you say you're rooted in the technicalities of policy and delivery, what you're then saying is, for instance, every government has some sort of delivery unit. They call it different names, okay? We are told these are the people who are supposed to ensure that whatever project government has embarked on, they follow up and make sure that everything gets done. Okay? Now, if you have the role you have and you tell us this is the government policy, will you also tell us where we are at every given point in time? Will you be able to tell us, fine, folks, this is what I'm saying. This is the roadmap, okay? Where we want to get to is here. And we are going to take this length of time, or so we hope. Now, in the meantime, periodically, I'll be telling you where we are at and what has been achieved. Is that your role?
There's, of course, under the structure, there's a GDU that was set up, should be under the Prime Cabinet Secretary's office, which completely deals with what you're talking about now. Tracking government delivery in terms of this, what needs to be done, how much is being done. Then there's me would say, the government in last year on March talked about delivering fertilizer to farmers. And I'll tell you today, for instance, there have been an uptake of 3 million bags of fertilizers. That's what I would do. That's what I would tell you about what the government is doing. Because you realize that sometimes, just like advertising, when you wink in the dark, nobody really gets to notice. Doesn't matter when times you wink. So sometimes there's a lot that is going on in government, a lot of things that the government is doing, but never gets to come out here. So what ends up winning is the stories that you hear about what the government is not doing. But then in reality, government is always working. There's always something that is being delivered. But then again, who communicates these things? That this is what has been happening. Look at, for instance, what was happening yesterday, the EU signing economic pact between Kenya and the European Union. We have had a lot of conversations about the president's visit to EU and a lot of stories around it, how he's globetrotting and all that. But then again, without the transition of the results of this, all these conversations get lost at that point. So I try to create a link between the activities and the promises and what is being delivered at this point for public consumption.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you then
not for accountability, for public consumption.
Do you then also work closely with that unit which is nestled in the Chief Prime Minister,
Prime Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Prime CS.
Prime, thank you. Do you coordinate with that office, the office of the government spokesman, and every other office that deals with service delivery, the actualization of it, and the reporting of it?
So, just to give you a perspective of it, for me, I'm domiciled under the office of State House spokesperson. That is the State House policy around State House. Everything operates in its own way. The office of GDU majorly would work with what I'm telling you, tracking of government delivery. That office is not in place yet. It is in the structure, it does not be constituted. The office of the government spokesperson is not in place yet, as you can know. So the much I can do is what the office of the state spokesperson can deliver around the presidency as it is, not around the all operations in government. I cannot tell you now, I can speak for the Ministry of Agriculture, but I can only tell you what is happening there, what has been delivered at that point when it comes to just across board.
You know, Gerald, where I'm going with my questions, I'm seeking clarity, but I also want to remove the ambiguity of there being duplication of services. Because it's communication. The policy bit, yes. None of these other people talk about policy. That is absolutely true. But you see, policy, for it to make sense, has to be actualized.
Yeah.
So we have to see, this is policy, this is what it looks like when it's operationalized. So I'm asking the question, that is you. Then there are these other people, GDU, who then follow up to make sure that these things get done. Now, when they are done, it is you who reports it. From a policy perspective, my thinking, this was the policy, this is how it's been delivered. The GDU hardly ever talks, at least the existence of one, when in the previous government, we actually hosted the gentleman who was in charge of it. But one knew it existed, but one didn't actually get to hear a report from them on a daily basis as to what they were doing. But yet they were working, as you say. So I'm merely asking, do you work closely? Do you connect to these people? Because if we talk about what they do, it has to emanate from policy. And you communicate on policy. Now, this is what we want to do. It's been done. This is what it looks like. That is really my question.
You see, in government, there's nobody works in isolation. Government is one unit. It's like the three of you here. You sit on one show, which is a situation room, And somehow, at some point, you're talking about the proverb, and he's chiming in and giving his thoughts, and at some point, Ndu also has something to say. There's nobody who works in isolation. Nobody's an island. At the end of the day, you're all feeding into one goal. When you talk about policy, the manifesto itself, Kenya Kwanza, is a policy in itself. It's a promise to Kenyans that this is what we are coming to do. There are other things that come in between governance, the policy decisions that are made by the president or any other ministries that we might not. And we are domiciled. I'm domiciled at State House myself under the spokesperson's office. So to the much that I can speak, I can only speak about what the president is doing at that point. But then again, I cannot go to ministries and talk and say, okay, Moses Kuria, what is happening with this and that? Or I go to another ministry, what is happening with this and that? But then I would majorly say we speak after the president's action. What has been done? This is what we say, this is what. But I cannot direct
So you
policy.
explain the president's actions.
I cannot direct policy.
And the president's statement. Sometimes he has said something and, there needs to be clarity.
Yeah.
So it's basically working under the
So I
office
cannot,
of
first
the
of all, I cannot
State
speak
House
for the
spokesperson.
president. Yes, I cannot speak for the president. I cannot direct policy. I can only amplify what is being done within the presidency. Yeah.
Okay. Do you decide what will be shared and when? Looking at things that could be going on in the country at one time where there is a need to have information shared. Do you decide, or is this a conference of agreement whereby you then come out and say, this is how the information will be shared from government?
You see, every statement that I would make as a person, unlike a few months ago, I would say anything. I would speak anything, I would come to a show and say anything. I would not even bother to seek clarifications on anyone. And I remember with the last invitation that I got from Latiff, I was very clear that I'm not ready now because I need to be ready, because I need to know when I speak, who I'm speaking for, and I have the necessary approvals to do that. So I don't work in isolation. Every government communication that comes out has to represent the position of the presidency. And that is why I cannot speak before the president. I cannot talk about something the president has not done. I can only amplify the things that he is doing and the fourth part that he's working on. So talking about approval, it's a whole scheme of things on what really needs to go out there, what exactly is going on, what are the things that we want to look at, what has the president done this week, where is the direction looking like, what do we need to communicate to the public. It's not something that I sit alone and decide, because if I say anything right now, it represents either the whole department or it represents the whole presidency and the government as it is. Yeah.
I know the office of the State House spokesperson has the dual role of speaking and explaining what the president is doing, but also has the role of advising the president on how to message his communication. True? So because you work under that ministry, does that mean that you're also doing that? You're also shaping what the president is saying so that it aligns with the kind of message that you'd like people to understand?
Yes, because also part of our responsibility is, feedback management. That's what is the public saying? How is the best behaving? What is the feedback on the projects that are coming in by the president that are being implemented? Things that have been done before. What is the feedback? What do people think? And then how do we align going forward on what needs to be done? If the president is going to Bungoma, for instance, what are some of the things that really matter to those people? What is that feedback on some of the things that the government has implemented there? What could be the things that they want to hear at that point? How do we direct in terms of action? So we can only advise at that point that this is how things are. When it comes as well to maybe when the president needs to speak and the statements and all that, there's a whole team of people that decide what goes into it. So we're just part of a bigger scheme of things. Yeah.
Part of a bigger team.
Part of a bigger scheme of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the things that we've seen you speak about lately since assuming office is, coming, like, for example, yesterday, and you've just mentioned it here, there was the signing of the Kenya-EU trade pact.
Yes.
And you went ahead to explain. You see, when the president was in the EU the other day, this is some of the discussion that we're having, and they've come here and now the deal has been signed. But Gerard, this deal is a product of many years of work. It's not just a product of the president's visit to the EU recently and coming back. How do you tie in the overall, what the president is doing, with the bigger picture of what government is doing? Because government is beyond an administration.
So the question is, Latiff, do we have a new country every 5 years?
No, we don't.
Yeah, we can only have a new government. Does it mean that everything stops that was started stops, and then again we start on a new cycle.
Sometimes
There
some
are
people
things
would
that
like
matter.
to do that, but yeah. Mhm.
So sometimes there are processes that we know as a country matter to all of us. There are processes that I could start and you could finish in the biggest interest of the public and the people. This is what, and I've seen this argument coming out often yesterday when these signings were done. But the person who has actually made this happen and consummated it is the president who is sitting right now. He could have decided to leave it. Would it have been better? Because it's an argument that I find limps a lot. Right? Because I think government transition does not mean that there needs to be an overhaul of activities that have been happening in governance. It can only mean that there are things that continues if it aligns with your policy framework. This is what you want to deliver. This was your manifesto. The thing that will come in, you realize that the previous president was doing this, and you can actually continue doing. And this is an international relationship matter. It's not an issue of me and Muga, who probably were in different parties now agreeing and doing things together. It's about the processes of international relationships and business partnerships. So it doesn't stop just because the president has exited. If it needs to continue, then the person who holds that docket can continue with it and ensure that it can be delivered. So the wins that we had yesterday is just not a win. It's not a loss because it was not the president who started. It is a win because finally we have the things that we are looking for as a country. So the partnership that we are having does not benefit President William Ruto. It benefits the country as a whole and the business people of this country. So I think that's the match that we need to look at it, the angle we need to look at it from.
Of course, there was the other reaction of the other East African countries that dilly-dallied in getting a deal, a common deal with the EU, and then Kenya took this matter up and they ran ahead with it. What's the likely blowback from the other EAC states? Now that Kenya has this particular pact with the EU that gives them preferential access, trade access into the EU market, that gives EU manufacturers and traders preferential access into the Kenyan market. But regionally, we also have another trade deal that talks about how we are promoting intra-EAC trade by also imposing sanctions on goods from other countries. How is this likely to play out?
The pact between between Kenya and the EU. It's not between Kenya and Tanzania and Uganda and the EU. It is a pact between Kenya and the EU, the movement of those products in between. And all the countries have sovereignties in their own business operations. And we're also looking at the open market protocols that we are looking at right now. We are getting to a point whereby the global market is an open market, where you can trade across the global, depending on where your benefits as a business. We have seen countries that have moved to sign pacts. You've seen Tanzania, Uganda, they're signing their own pacts with other partners. Does it then stop us that we can sit and pause and say, okay, fine, we are waiting for a consensus within the EAC for us to have an agreement on this and this regarding our nation and other markets? I don't think so. If there are benefits that can be directly beneficial to the things that we produce, we're talking about agriculture, for instance, agricultural exports. We produce those exports, agricultural exports as well. We are not importing from Uganda, then we transport to the EU. We are trading between Kenya, as it is as a nation, and the EU. We are not signing on behalf of any other country. We're having a pact between Kenya and the EU. And I think we have that level of transnational independence.
That's all understood. My question is, you see, Kenya also is a signatory to the East African Common Market Protocol, which has its own deals and protocols that talk about how we trade regionally and also how we give each other preferential treatment when it comes to trade. But because we're giving each other preferential treatment, we also are very careful on how external markets access this market or how we access the other external markets. And that's why there's a whole conversation of why don't you have the EU is dealing with us as a block of countries. We are dealing as one country, and yet we have the East African community. Why couldn't we, as Kenya, as the people who can see the bigger picture, work within the EAC and convince our brothers and sisters in the EAC that let's sign a pact with the EU together? Remember, as a person who speaks after the president has spoken, the president has talked about this before. Why are African countries being dealt with singularly to go and meet with, one big country or one EU, one UK, one US? We need to be talking as Africa. We need to be treated as a big African giant that we are. And yet here we are signing a deal as Kenya and not the EAC.
I think we are being unfair to ourselves and to our sovereignty to an extent, because there are different conversations going on within different units. The EAC is still there. Nobody has messed up with the trade between Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda, and any other country in between. Europe coming in does not mean that now you're not going to trade with Uganda or Tanzania. At least my own very basic understanding. We've seen the president over the last couple of weeks working around the unity of Africa. And the economic, I'm talking about even about Afri-Exim Bank, coming in as a trading unit to trade amongst each other. Does that mean that you cannot trade with other countries outside the African conglomeration? Doesn't mean that. It only means that yes, you can have that trade relationship outside, but you can also have these other trade relationships that you can have within the EAC and within the region as it is. So I think we are being very unfair to ourselves if we say that we are going, like you have said. You started very well. You said they are dilly-dallying. So if they are dilly-dallying, how is it our responsibility?
So if there's a position for Kenya to be able to take something and run with it while the others are deciding, it doesn't mean that, Kenya has forsaken the community, as it were, but there's also opportunities that Kenya can take and go with that.
And I think that would work in reverse. Does it mean that other countries within the EAC have not had trade pacts with other nations? They have had. Does it mean that we have had a political or a business impasse with those people because they have made decisions that were good for their country? That's not a fact. For instance, different countries produce different things. When you go to Tanzania, you talk about the several minerals that Tanzania comes out with and trades among other nations. So if Tanzania, for instance, decides to do a trade pact between Germany and themselves on the trade of diamonds, does it affect the trade within the EAC? Doesn't affect the relationship between the EAC. And are we saying that just because we have a trade relationship, then we lose our sovereignty to make decisions in terms of trade? I don't think so.
No, it doesn't. Are we going to a break, or can I say what I wish to say?
Say, and then we'll do the break.
This matter has a slight complexity because this discussion we're having around 2014 is when we started having these discussions, and we were having it as the East African community, not as Kenya. Now, in 2016, the agreement that was then reached at Kenya actually signed, Rwanda signed but didn't ratify it because the understanding was that it was supposed to take it to their parliament, respective parliaments. Uganda and Tanzania did not sign. Okay? So now, moving forward, new government in place, Kenya then signs. In my mind, everything you say is true, Gerald, except this. If this matter had not begun as something that was being worked out for the East African community, it would be a very straightforward matter. When you are trying to create an economic bloc and to strengthen it, there are details that perhaps we don't understand and things which your office might be able to clarify for us. And that is how we navigate around such a matter, which we started as the East African community. And now Kenya seems to have said, okay, folks, you seem to be dilly-dallying. We had this opportunity in 2016, you didn't take it. So now we are now moving forward and we are signing. The reality is, if we sign an agreement with the EU, such as the one we're talking about, it means all the 27 members of that EU will be able to trade with us. It would be a lie if we said it would not affect the trade within East Africa. It will. Now, how much it will affect and whether it will be adverse is a subject of discussion, but it will.
There's something. Let's take a break, then we continue the conversation. 26 minutes to 8, Kenya's biggest conversation. Gerard Bitok is the Director of Public Communications at State House. He's here. Today we are discussing the role of government communications, plan and delivery. And he's now in that role. He's taken a couple of minutes to explain to us what the role entails. Now that we understand, let's engage.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's that time again when we get to gather around and marvel at the great engineering, raw power, finesse, and sharing our round motor love for motoring at the annual Digger Motor Show 2023. From car lovers, bike enthusiasts, spare part dealers, insurance, as well as asset financiers and more, this year's Digger Motor Show will be one for the books. We're talking a whole 4-day event from Thursday 20th to Sunday 23rd at KICC Grounds, Nairobi, where we will have something for everyone. So you better not miss out. Get the family, bring your friends, and share in the joys that will give you lasting memories and an experience you're bound to not forget. For more information or participation, contact Caroline on 0723 803601 or email sinyandiaka@standardmedia.co.ke. Digger Motor Show 2023 is brought to you by Standard Group and Digger Motors and is powered by Spice FM. When the engine revs, will you be ready to get all that petrolhead enthusiasm at this year's annual Digger Motor Show? Well, you better belt up and make your way to KICC from the 20th to the 23rd of July 2023 for a wholesome 4-day event. Come and join car lovers, bike enthusiasts, spare part dealers, insurance, as well as asset financiers and more for what will be an unforgettable experience by far. We are going all out to make it a great show for you and the whole family with something for everyone. So, you better not miss out. For more information or participation, contact Caroline on 0723 803601 or email sinyandiaka@standardmedia.co.ke. Digger Motor Show 2023 is brought to you by Standard Group and Digger Motors and is powered by Spice.
14 in Nairobi, highs of 25, highs of 27 in sunny Nakuru at 14, and it's 15 and sunny in Nyeri, highs of 24. 24 will be the high and mostly sunny Eldoret at 14. It's 24 and mostly sunny in Mombasa, highs of 30 and lows of 24, and we'll see lows of 24 as well in a sunny Malindi, going to highs of 30. It's mostly cloudy at 20 in Kisumu, highs of 29 and highs of 27 in a mostly cloudy Kakamega at 17. It's 19 and cloudy in Kampala, highs of 26, and we'll see highs of 31 in a mostly sunny Dar es Salaam at 24. It's 4 degrees and clear in Johannesburg, highs of 17 and lows of 3, and partly cloudy at 25 in Lagos, highs of 30. 31 will be the high in a mostly cloudy Kinshasa at 21. Parts of Langata Road this morning getting quite packed as you're coming in out from that Otiende Junction towards Huru Gardens and then out towards Wilson. And then some of it will branch out towards Rilo Dingawe and then out towards Aerodrome. So that looks pretty packed right about now. On Jogger Road, it's busy as you go towards Landis. It's moving. Going to hold on in some parts, bumper to bumper. It's heavy on the thicker superhighway. You want to use the service lanes as you're trying to get into the CBD. And we're looking at many lanes on Kiambu Road right about now. Coming out of Muthaiga, Limuru Road, and towards the CBD via way of either Wangari Maathai Way or coming then and joining with Muranga Road. That also looks pretty busy. Oloitoktok Road, James Geshoro, all of that touching on Wayaki Way at some point. Very busy this morning. Still a bit gloomy, but the sun is going to shine through it all. Let us know what's going on where you are. Want to keep things moving this Tuesday? Let us know. Spice FM KE on Twitter.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
Gerard Bitok is the Director of Public Communications at State House. He works in the office of the State House spokesperson. He's here with us this morning talking about the role of government communications. Gerard, you said something that was actually, it's something we've said here many times before. Even you have said it here, that the government is doing a lot of things, but they don't communicate. Mm-hmm. Where the government loses the plot is they do everything else, but part of communication comes in late. But also we see that even in the private sector, where you design a project, you are launching a new product, and you have done everything. You've ticked all the boxes, including how the launch is going to look like, what you're going to do, who you're going to invite. And then that's the time you're thinking, okay, now communication. How are you going to communicate this at the very end? Whereas it's important to start a project with communication in mind. Now, do you think the government is at a position where it can also change its perception of communication and start policy with communication in mind, start program and projects with communication in mind, so that at the point when you are coming to communicate, you've already been taking us through. The government is thinking of this new policy. The government is launching this new program, or this is where the program has gone so far, and these are now the benefits of that thing that I started telling you 10 years ago.
I think that's where we are trying to head to, because like you've already said, there's been somewhat like a missing link between the delivery, the government delivery, and the people, because you realize that the citizens, especially Kenyans, are very impatient people. They'll put you in government because it's even a government that has not even gotten its first budget. But then they have a lot of expectations. They want to know what is going on, what exactly is happening. Why are we going through this? Why is the price of fuel this much? Why is Unga this much? Why are we not seeing a change in this and such a way? So there's a need to constantly keep these people, because it's a relationship. It's like two people are getting into a marriage, and you have the pact of promises, and they're asking, where will come gari after 2 months? What is going on? Then you have to explain that maybe when I got into this marriage, maybe I estimated this or I underestimated this and that, or this is the match that we are doing. But then again, give credit where it's due. I think the government has done a lot within these few months that most of us would not really appreciate if you are not told about. For instance, you'll be looking at the issues of the cost of living and agriculture, for instance. We've talked several times about the subsidy programs that we've been having around production versus consumption. For the longest time, we've always subsidized unga, which is the final product. That you're saying you mail Rick at whatever price you're going to mail in, then as a government we're going to come in and close in the gap and make it affordable. But then again, it doesn't really fix the cost of living as it should be. And when the president came in, he has taken the very tough and hard path of saying that we are not going to subsidize consumption anymore, we're going to subsidize production. And as we are speaking right now, over 3 million bags of fertilizer have been taken up. Right, since we started the program, actually 5 million farmers were registered. We've seen an uptake of 3 million. 3 million farmers actually have taken up the fertilizer, subsidized fertilizer. Now, the ripple effect of this is that in the next few months, and I come from the Rift where we farm often, and I can guarantee you that in the next few months we are going to have a bumper harvest, and obviously that's going to affect the cost of table food, looking at Unga, for instance. So you really have a lot of things that are happening in between that we don't get to speak about it. Look at Asla Fund, for instance. Billions of money have been dispersed. Of course, there's been the issues of the impact on, but even done the second phase on businesses that chairmans can get financed and they move and they run with this. We've also seen what the president has been doing on the international platform. For the first time, we are seeing a more acceptable country across the globe. We have seen the president engaging African countries. He has been very active, especially on Pan-African engagements. And he has been the big brother in terms of the Pan-African leadership. As you have seen, he has taken direction and led with that. On the international relationship, we are looking in at the return of very warm relationship. Look at America, look at UK, for instance. Look at the at the European side of the globe. So we're seeing a president that has been very active on the international platform to get in more partnerships and more businesses to come on board. We had a signing between the EU Chamber of Commerce. We heard about the American Chamber of Commerce that not only gives the country a good leverage in the international politics and economics, but also gives every citizen an opportunity to access business across the globe. So there are a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes that we would really have to speak about. Look at housing, for instance. The president has done a groundbreaking of thousands and thousands of housing units.
How many so far?
I think I would have to check the numbers exactly. But we've seen the groundbreaking of the housing units.
Housing projects.
The housing projects that is supposed to at least ensure that it can subsidize the provision of housing.
I'd like to engage on those three things of what you've talked about. All right. So there is the issue of the subsidy. And of course, there's the issue of the Hustler Fund, because we got to a point now we're no longer getting a lot of public awareness on what's happening with the Hustler Fund and something else. Let's start with the subsidy. 3 million farmers have received subsidized fertilizer.
Yes.
In how many counties?
40 counties.
In 40 counties. Yes. Is Mandera one of those counties?
I'd love to check the specifics of which counties exactly have done an uptake of that.
I'm asking that because
where exactly, but because
Abdullahi Alas has texted me from Mandera. He says, in Mandera County, there are no fertilizers received from the national government. The county Department of Agriculture has nothing, not available locally. And there are other areas of the country where people have called here and they put comments on social media and they say, we hear of subsidized fertilizer, but we haven't come across it. What do you tell those people who have not?
I think all the subsidies were being distributed towards the chains of NCPB. So if someone has not received the subsidized fertilizer, they have to state the reason why. Is it that they went to the stores and they missed the fertilizer? Was it not there? Is it that they went and they told the fertilizer not there? What were the reasons that were given by those officers? Because the fertilizer should be available across the country.
Okay, so it should be available.
Yes,
but 3 million with the 5 million farmers registered. So there's still a shortfall of 2 million farmers who have not received fertilizer.
It's about absorption because you cannot guarantee 100% absorption on any government project. So if you are doing the fertilizer, for instance, there's no guarantee that Ndu, who is sitting in Nairobi, is going to take up fertilizer, for instance, or the next. It doesn't mean that the project has failed, but it only means that maybe there are people who have not absorbed the fertilizer, and it's a continuous process. That's one thing. The beauty about this, that it's a continuous process. It's not a one-off thing. Depending on the farming seasons, it's a continuous. You could be doing the planting, you're doing the NPK. At some point, you're doing the CN and the urea. So it's a continuous process. The subsidy fertilizer program is a continuous process. So the uptake needs to continue, and it would be good to get those feedback as well. Like Abdullah, I should be able to know, and I think I know him. I should be able to know why he was not able to access a fertilizer, and then we can give the feedback back to Ministry of Agriculture. But I cannot sit here and tell you that there is 100% absorption of that of the fertilizer.
Okay. Something else that happens is, you've talked about the president came in and said, let's break away from subsidizing consumption. Subsidizing consumption actually just happened the other day towards the election.
Yes.
Before that, the kind of subsidy that we see often is subsidizing offtake from farmers, where NCPB buys maize from farmers at a certain price that is well above maybe the market, and then they put up a certain amount. Are we likely to see the same happening this year at harvest time, when farmers then come and say, we want to sell our maize, but at this particular price, and then the NCPB then has to match that price?
I think the government is going to make a declaration on the buying price. Of course, it has done before. There will be several harvests, and the government has said we're going to buy the maize at this much. There are many farmers, of course, who are going to sell also to private players. We have millers who are doing who are milling every single day. At this point of time, it's not only that the farmer relies 100% on the government uptake, but also on the private sector and the guys who are milling and selling for commercial purposes. So the government will set this price, that this is a much that we're going to buy the maize at. Right, and the government is not a government of Uganda. The maize will still be here, anyway. Will still be within the circulation. So when you talk about if we are subsidizing Muga, for instance, then we will not have the maize that we're talking about harvesting. So we're harvesting now because we've subsidized production. The biggest headache as a farmer, if you have ever farmed before, the biggest headache of any farmer is the cost of production. If your cost of production does not match, or is more than the output, then it doesn't make sense to farm. So any farmer right now who is farming would be very keen to know if the final price at NCBB, for instance, will be 4,000 shillings. When I make my calculation on the cost of fertilizer, there is a point that even fertilizer was 7,000 Kenyan shillings, right? And however much you try to calculate, even for just subsistence, it was not making sense. So if we are subsidizing production, it means that we are not only giving a farmer a chance to earn from either front, whether you're selling to government, whether you're going to sell in private sector, or whether you're also consuming as well, whether using it to pay fees, because even schools are telling you can bring maize, but then again they can match up their pricing. This is the cost of maize, and you can use it to set off your fees. So not only are we giving the farmer an opportunity to negotiate in the market, whether you're selling them to the private sector or you're selling to the government, you still have a margin because your cost of production are very low. Why have we always complained about the influx of imports in terms of food products, for instance, from Uganda? The cost of producing maize in Uganda is almost nil. So a farmer in Uganda would sell that maize for almost nothing. And it comes to this country, and you cannot compete. And in an era of an open market protocol, you cannot say, like the time when Tanzania was saying they cannot take up our eggs, or they cannot take up our chicken, our chicklets. We cannot get to a point where you're saying we have to stop supply. We can only compete in terms of production. What is the cost of production of a bag in Kenya and Tanzania? If our cost of production is almost at the same level, then we don't need to import from Tanzania because the market price would still be the same. So the subsidized production, subsidized fertilizer does not only give the farmer an opportunity to negotiate better in the market, but also ensures that we have more and more maize produced for self-sustenance. Yeah.
Okay. Looking at some of the things that were said by the government in place today that hinged on policy in the name of promises during campaigns, how then would you update Kenyans on a regular basis in terms of what is happening with those things? So there were certain things that were said in the run-up to elections and then even after the government was put in place that for one reason or another, right now have not been done. There may be things in progress. There may be things that are futurely in terms of the execution. How would you then be updating Kenyans on some of those things? We're looking at the water provision, for example. I believe the number given was 100 dams to be built around the country, to be constructed and things like that, that Kenyans, are hinged upon and waiting to hear back. How would you then be updating Kenyans with regularity on the things that then are policy, as you've said?
That's what we've been trying to do, to ensure that we can keep Kenyans abreast on what has been happening. For instance, last week we spoke much about fertilizer program, how much we've been able to achieve. Also getting feedback from farmers. We have a lot of footages from the ground, from farmers who have benefited and how much they've been able to produce better this year. So we'll try as much as possible to keep the public engaged on what exactly the government is doing and the results that are coming back from the party. Not just about us sitting somewhere and saying, okay, this is what we've given you. It's also about coming back to you, like farmers, coming to the farmers and asking them, the fertilizer that we gave you, did you get access to fertilizer? Yes. At how much? This is the price that you got. What are the results? Someone will show you their farm. This is a match I've been able to harvest. You've seen even women who are doing ngwashe farming or sweet potatoes. You've seen farmers who have been, as far as even Ombaso Bay, all parts of the country. We've tried to take feedback, Rift Valley and Western, trying to see Central Kenya, trying to see what exactly has been able to be moved in terms of the government programs. Now, there are programs that will take time. When you talk about dams, for instance, the conversation around dams was around PPPs and how much can the government can do at that level. So that's not something that you can say you're going to deliver overnight. For instance, we have dams that we are doing at that point. How long does it take to build a dam, for instance? So as we move forward, the government will be able to do much more, and we'll be able to come out here and say the government has done maybe 20 cubic meter of dam. The government has been able to disperse this much to education. We are seeing also the issues of universal health care that is coming up under Ministry of Health, ensuring that all Kenyans, this is part of the promise, ensuring that every Kenyan can get dignified health care services. Dignified healthcare services exclusive, without any exclusions. So you look at UHC, the universal healthcare coverage that's coming in as well. When that point comes where the government is launching and implementing it, we'll come back and tell you this is the much the government is doing at the Ministry of Health. This is what the UHC entails. This is what will be expected from you. This is what NHI will do for you. This is what any other government agency will do for you. So progressively, we'll be able to update on the deliveries. Okay. We are only how many months? The government is a few months in office. Almost a year. This is the first budget that is coming out. So at least let's wait for the budget. You're seeing the allocations that have been done, about 5 billion into fertilizer. When you come back, we'll tell you what's happened with the 5 billion. You're talking to other allocations that has been done, maybe into Ministries of Water, Ministry of Health. At least we'll come back and tell you, okay, according to the budget that we passed in 2023, this is the much the government has been able to do. But I think it's overbearing at this point also to ask the government about the dam it promised in a manifesto. How long is that to be built?
Okay, but Gerald, do you think also it would be prudent in nature then also that should things not go as expected, that Kenyans should have an opportunity to hear from your good offices also that, look, guys, this is what we thought we would be able to do. And because of this, we've not been able to, rather than, allow things to snowball to a situation whereby people are, your office is met with angst and all sorts of things. Do you think also that would be a stance that you would take and say, look, this is the situation, not just progressively. There's sometimes when things are at a standstill and Kenyans ought to be told the truth.
Of course, there'll be those moments where things that are supposed to be moving are not moving. And I think, as the communication is a continuous process, I cannot preempt now and communicate to you what is going to happen in the next 3 weeks, what is going to stop stop, what is going to stall, or what is not going to happen at that point. I cannot preempt now and communicate to you. But it gets to that point whereby critical services or critical things within government are not moving. It's the responsibility of government to come out and communicate to its people and the citizens that this is a situation with this, and this is what we are trying to do about it. So I would not sit here and preempt what is going to happen in the next 2 weeks or what exactly is going to stall. We just started off. There are programs that are running. If it gets to that point where you're asking me, you call me and you're like, you talked about subsidized, like what you're asking me now about subsidized fertilizer. That's the feedback I would really want to follow up on, because I've also been very keen on this subsidized fertilizer. I think I would want to understand why a Kenyan would not have access to the subsidized fertilizer. Then from that point, then we can handle that progressively as we move forward, because feedback and delivery work hand in hand. If I give you this and you have to give me feedback about it, if I told you I'm going to give you this and then you feel you're not getting it, that feedback as well as helps us and helps the government to ensure that it can improve on its delivery.
You know, when the president speaks, he likes to give timelines. Often in his speeches, he'll talk about in 6 months' time, in October, in come January next year, come March, right? So already he is setting timelines for delivery of these projects. And of course, the expectation is that the president, by the time he's saying that, is because he has sat with the relevant officers and they've said, this, Mr. President, will be able to do around this time. In Galana Kulalu, he said that by June, we'll be having a PPP framework that will then allow in the private sector to start rolling out into Galana Kulalu. Now, the question that Ndu is asking is what I want to amplify. Is it your office's role to come back and say, so the president had talked about something happening in June, we are in June, and this is the progress of where we are? Because we don't expect the president to be now coming back at it. Nilisema June. Nilisema mwezi wa kumi. It is now your job. So we are in June. Where are we with the Galana Kulalu PPP framework? Where are we with the promises that have been made so far, the things that were to happen by around this time? So how will you be keeping us updated?
I think we've been speaking. It's not the first time that me and you are speaking here. The fact that I've also invited me means we've been speaking.
Yes.
And you know what they've been doing. If there is any information that you would need to go to the public on the state of things, I'll be more than available to get you that information.
No. Proactively. I mean, this is your job. That's why we as the taxpayers are paying you.
But
come out and say, as the person who speaks for the presidency, who amplifies the presidency's message, the president made a commitment at this point. This is the progress of that commitment.
And that's exactly what I'm telling you we are doing about the projects that are going on, but the service delivery. And we're looking at the manifesto as a roadmap for Kenya Kwanza. Right? And we need to get to a point where we can map out the deliveries that are supposed to be done at a certain point, and we can say, okay, this is what the presidency promised, or this is what is in the manifesto. Maybe it's within Health, Ministry of Agriculture, within Ministry of Education. We can tell you this is the march that is going on. And if there's anything that has been, because I cannot hold the president to his timelines. And I think I started that very clearly, that I don't hold the president to his timelines. So I can only communicate what has been done by the president. Tell you, that's what I'm telling you about the fertilizer, and you can hold me accountable and tell me, okay, fine, there's a farmer somewhere who's saying he has not received fertilizer. So I can take that information and try to ensure why, and find out why that person has not been able to access that service, for instance. So we'll try as much as possible proactively to ensure that we can keep every citizen updated on what exactly has been done. But one thing that I cannot is that I cannot hold the president to his timelines.
Okay. We'll invite you again, Gerard. Now you're in government, you're fresh in government, you're finding your way through the corridors and the many doors.
And I think you guys are being too hard on me, considering I've not even sat well on my seat.
Now we'll invite you again after you've seen the things. Come and tell us, coming from outside, and the communication that you've been doing outside, and the frustration that you've been having with not hearing the right message from government, and then getting in there, what is it that you find that maybe needs to change so that government can communicate more effectively and better? But congratulations on this job.
Thank you. I think also we need to invite you as partners, and you find that sometimes the biggest role of the media is the same role that we have as government, to engage the public, and it's in the public good. So we want to invite you as partners to ensure that as well you can proactively speak about what the government is doing. Even as you're talking about what it's not doing, you can also tie it up with what it's doing, what the government is doing, so that we all ensure that the public is informed. Because I think there's always been a missing link between. There's only much that government communication can do without the mainstream communication as you are. Me sitting here means that I can get a bigger space to speak to more citizens than now speak in my own corner where I am.
That's true.
So invite you as partners to ensure that as well you can partner with us, and ensure that we can speak to more and more Kenyans. For instance, this message on fertilizer, maybe you can ask me for more information. Then tomorrow, when I'm listening in at 6 a.m., I want to hear you saying, this is what has happened.
Very well said, Gerard. We have a partnership. You'll be a regular visitor to this show so that you can give us updates and we can get to understand what the government is doing.
That's Andrew.
Gerard Bigtalk is the Director of Public Communications at State House. Keep it here for more. It's 8 a.m.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. President William Ruto has lauded the newly signed Kenya-European Union partnership, saying it will boost trade and investment relations between the two entities. The pact, signed by EU Trade Commissioner Valdis Dombrovskis and Trade CS Moses Kuria, has been in the making for 7 years. Under the deal, Kenya exports will now enjoy duty and quota-free market access to the EU.
We also commit that we will work with our East African partner states. We will work with the 28 African states that are members of the tripartite free trade agreement so that we can bring them on board this agreement subsequently, and hopefully we can also take this all the way to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area so that we can build a bigger market, build a bigger consensus, and be able to do more with the populations that exist between Europe and Africa.
Kenya's exports to the EU will be tariff-free from the day one after its entry into force. This means full and unhindered access to the EU market. This creates strong incentives for trade and for EU companies to invest in Kenya. The goal here is to support job creation and sustainable economic growth with a particular focus on micro, small and medium-sized enterprises.
The Law Society of Kenya has raised concerns over an increase in unlawful arrest of Advocates Society President Eric Theuri, faulted police and the Directorate of Criminal Investigations for arresting advocates while undertaking their mandate.
And so therefore it renders all of us unsafe because he cannot restrain himself within the bounds of the powers as has been donated to him under the Constitution. And so therefore this is a call to our members, those who are facing intimidation from any of the security agencies, to let us know so that together we can robustly challenge these very unfortunate steps that we are witnessing within the justice sector and the administration of justice.
And the Communications Authority has revealed that Pastor Ezekiel Odero aired illegal content on a television station owned by controversial Pastor Paul Mackenzie of Good News International Ministries. Appearing before the Senate Ad Hoc Committee, Director General Ezra Chiloba said between January to April this year, Odero had aired programs that demonstrated exorcism.
Given the developments and what we were observing, and especially when we kept on iterating the content that we had online, we had in our system, it became apparent that this was going to be a big issue. The online content, the online presence of Pastor Mackenzie's teachings. And that's why we said, let's mop out all the information that we know about that so that we're able to provide some sense of direction whenever called upon. Now, CA does not have a direct mandate when it comes to enforcement of some of these violations, especially the ones criminal in nature. We have to work with other departments of government.
A Jubilee rebel faction led by Yala MP Kanini Kege nominated MP Sabine Chege has been banned from acting on behalf of the Jubilee Party. The political party's dispute tribunal has also issued orders restraining the Kanini Kege-led faction of the Jubilee Party from pulling out of the Azimio One Kenya coalition. Kega's group has also been banned from convening a national delegates conference set for Thursday, pending the determination of the case. And Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has said the government will double water capacity to 6 million connectivity in the next 5 years. In a statement, the DP said these will follow an assessment of the existing water capacity in the country. The DP said that Kenya has sufficient technologies for integration into plans of ensuring people have ample, clean and safe water. Gachagua added that the country needs improved access to safe and clean water for domestic and commercial applications. Now, Chief Justice Martha Koome has mourned Uganda's Supreme Court Judge Stella Arach as a spirited advocate of the collegiality and judicial cooperation in the region. In a condolence note relayed by her office, Koome described Justice Arach, who passed away Saturday, as a passionate member of the East African Magistrates and Judges Association. Koome further described the departed judge as a remarkable jurist who will be remembered for achievements and persistent contribution to the judiciary of Uganda and the entire East African region. Now, detectives in Kiambu County have recovered vandalized electricity grip items valued at 11 million shillings in Kiambu's Denderu area. The items were confiscated at a scrap metal yard. The recovery followed a raid trap of the metal yard owned by one Patrick Ingori, according to the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. One suspect linked to the metal yard, named Florence Kariuki, was arrested during the raid. This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto, good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
It's 8 o'clock and traffic is probably at its highest for this morning on Jogo Road, as well as North Airport Road leading towards Embakasi and out towards the Eastern Bypass. Lunga Lunga is heavy and it's spilling over to the Likoni interchange, touching a little bit here and there on the Southern Bypass as you're trying to get into the city the long way. We're also looking at traffic on Langata Road. It's heavy as you then approach Raila Odinga Way at the junction, and there is traffic on Wayaki Way coming out into the city westlands. There's a beehive of activity this morning. Kiambu Road also busy. It's busy coming off of Thika Superhighway as usual. It's been that way early, and Wayaki Way is heavy as you're coming through towards that Westlands junction right around Sarit Centre, then out towards the Westlands bus stage. All right, it's heavy coming out of out of Lavington, then through towards James Gisheru. All right, tell us what's going on where you are. We know Limuru Road is packed, guys. Sorry about that. It's coming slowly, but be patient. You'll get there eventually. Let's talk on Spice FM KE on Twitter. Keep things moving this Tuesday.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to
Hello. Okay, there's my mic. 7 after 8. Good morning, and how are you doing? It's on the third hour of The Situation Room, this 20th day of June, 2023. Have you gone to your Apple App Store or Google Play Store and looked for the 911 group app? Please do so. Ndu, please explain why.
So, you could get into a sticky situation anytime and you want emergency help. You want rescue services. You've got your car, it's splashed, whatever has happened that you need somebody to then be able to come and sort you out. So if you've downloaded this app on your phone, all you need to do is get on the app and call for help, and help will actually come to you really quickly. So imagine it's security on the go. It's peace of mind with the 911 app.
Even as you contact them, because I did contact them to find out if the things they say are actually true. Man, you get an email, you get a call, a message. They are very prompt. And before long, you're told so-and-so has called you, you call back and they say, when can we come and see you to talk about ABCD? So if I look at the promptitude with which they responded to my inquiry,
Imagine if it was an emergency.
Then it clearly, this is an emergency. I was trying to find out if they actually work. They actually do work.
They do, huh?
Yes, they do.
They do. So download the 911 group app on your Play Store, App Store, and, well, with that, you have your panic button with you wherever you are. As long as you have your phone with you, you've got a panic button with you, and they will respond immediately. On the 20th of June 2023, the world commemorates World Refugee Day as an international day designated by the UN to honor refugees around the globe. It falls each year on the 20th of June and celebrates the strength and courage of people who've been forced to flee their home country to escape conflict or persecution. Why is this day important? It's important because it shines a light on the rights, needs, and dreams of refugees, helping to mobilize political will and resources so that refugees can not only survive but also thrive. I'm getting this from the website of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR.org, and we are going to have that conversation. We'll be joined by two people. One of them is in the studio, the other one is running slightly late. Irene Kenoti is a program officer with Pamoja Trust. Will shortly be joined also by Boniface Odhiambo, who's an economic recovery and development coordinator at the International Rescue Committee. Irene, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you.
Karibu sana as we commemorate World Refugee Day. The theme for this year is hope.
Hope away from home.
Hope
Inclusion
away from
of
home.
refugees, yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
To welcome you to the conversation, CT has the day's proverb.
Our proverbs for the whole of this week come from a country called Kenya. You've heard of it? You know where it's nestled?
Yes.
East Africa?
Yes.
Okay, she knows where Kenya is. Okay.
Yeah.
The water of the river flows on without waiting for the thirsty man.
The waters of the river flow. Say again.
The water of the river
flows on
without waiting for the thirsty man.
I think that means that probably opportunities come once in a lifetime, and once an opportunity passes you by, it might be difficult for you to come across it again. Yeah.
Once it passes you by.
Yeah.
City, what do you think?
What I think is precisely what she thinks. Because when you look at, if you've ever been near moving water, call it a stream, call it a river, okay?
Yeah.
One of the things that you will see is that whether you go there in the morning or evening, afternoon, you know that water is moving. It's not moving in tandem with your timetable. It simply flows. Now, if you happen to be thirsty and you're by a river and you wish to drink from the river, then you may. But it isn't going to flow simply because you are thirsty or simply because you have need of the water that is flowing through it. No. It flows irrespective of what you think or want. Same with opportunities. They don't wait for you.
Yeah.
They don't time you at the moment of your greatest convenience. They are there, and it's up to you to take that chance and to take that opportunity. If not, it continues along its path. Yeah. Somebody else may see that same opportunity and take it. Yes.
Very good. So, June 20th is a big day for Pamoja Trust. We've had conversations with Pamoja Trust before, talking about the plight of the refugees across the globe, and especially those who live in the country and outside of the designated refugee camps. So now this year, as we commemorate Hope Away from Home, what does that mean? What's the basic translation of that when the UNHCR says this year's theme is Hope Away from Home?
The main thing that the UNHCR is trying to put forward is the place of inclusion for the refugees and integrating them amongst the local communities, or the host communities as we call the Kenyans, because the only way a person who's away from home can feel in a accepted or in a homely space is when they feel that they are integrated within the neighborhoods that they live in. And with integration comes opportunities such as economic empowerment, comes opportunities such as living in habitable environments. So it's I would use the term pregnant word that carries a lot of creating a space for the refugees to just feel like they are accepted in a country such as Kenya.
Feel like they are accepted.
Yes.
What seems to be implied is that they don't feel accepted. as things stand? Well, look at it this way. They are in a camp. It's a designated geographical area within the confines of a certain habitation, and it's apart from, maybe any other community that lives nearby. So already they have been segregated. Now, what are we saying? Are we going to change this segregation? What are we saying? Are we going to move beyond the makeshift dwellings that they have? Are we going to create a habitation that mirrors other habitations that people in communities who are actually Kenyans have? What exactly are we saying?
I would like to first of all reference the urban refugees, those ones who are living in areas such as Nairobi. For people who live in Nairobi and most of the counties, the rise of the Refugee Act of 2021 gave them a lot of opportunities. First, for instance, the Act speaks about the refugees' inclusion in the development processes and also the economic spaces in the country. The Act also speaks about them accessing services, equal rights in equal measure with the Kenyans in terms of accessing facilities and also public institutions. So there is a progressiveness in terms of looking for a solution for the refugees beyond giving them the humanitarian assistance. And if you look at the donor world currently, a lot of work is moving away from giving the refugees humanitarian work to give humanitarian support to giving them self-reliance or mostly self-reliance type of support, where they can be able to get equal opportunities with the people in the different in the specific country.
Could you give an example of this sort of facilitation that you speak of?
So, for instance, in Nairobi County recently started giving the urban refugees their business permits. And this is to allow the refugees begin doing businesses, especially in the informal markets and the different markets that they have access to, because data shows that majority of the refugees, especially in the urban areas, are the people who serve us with these informal types of commodities. Along the road, utapata, the people who are selling the items are refugees, even in the markets. But then the challenge was these people were not getting spaces in these spaces in the
formal markets.
In the formal markets and even in the informal markets, because host communities were occupying spaces, and even when the refugees present, the host communities do not really recognize them and do not want to give them the space. But you see, with the county government recognizing them and even making the step to give them business permits, is already creating a space where refugees feel included within these kinds of spaces. And this is not only for the matters to do with business. It also comes to even issues to do with the KRA. You cannot compare the past and currently. Right now, some refugees can actually access their KRA pins. We have some. I think it's mostly a system challenge, because there are refugees that can key in their ID numbers in the system and it runs, but then some of them still have some minor challenges. The same applies also for the NTSA and e-citizen platforms. In anything that majority of the services that Kenyans can access currently, the refugees can also access.
Could you walk us through the sort of documentation that a refugee has that recognizes them as a refugee but also enables them to get these services?
So once a refugee comes in Kenya, you'll come in as an asylum seeker. And you'll have to follow the due process within 30 days so that you can start applying for the refugee ID, because in Kenya, the main document that is recognized for the refugees is the refugee ID. However, the moment you get into Kenya and you start applying for the refugee status, you're given the asylum pass or the temporary pass. With the temporary pass, you can access some services, but then the refugee ID is the one that gives the refugees the access to do majority or get the opportunity to access so many services in the country. But the temporary pass or the asylum pass and the refugee ID are the main documents.
Who processes these documents?
The Department of Refugee Services, DRS.
And they're different from immigration?
Yes, that's different from the migration.
Let's look at numbers. Over 500,000 refugees in Kenya as of 2021. That number may have changed, whether slightly or significantly, with the conflict in Sudan, because we do know that there's been an influx of more after that conflict.
Yeah.
Also, some other numbers, Kenya is second to Ethiopia on the continent for having then being a source of asylum for these refugees. With the different services across organizations that are provided for refugees, what is the ultimate goal? I know there's several things. There's resettlement, there is, integration, and probably now futurely assimilation into societies where they've sought asylum. But what would be the end goal? To say, when the conflict in the place where you were initially domiciled has come to an end, then we think about you going back? Or is Kenya, for example, is Ethiopia, for example, ready to say, let these individuals who have fled as a result of conflict then get a second home in these countries where they're refugees?
Okay. So maybe I could speak a little bit about the current context. So you'll find that majority of the refugees from Sudan are not coming into Kenya. They are moving to the neighboring countries. What we still have is majority of the Somali people moving into Kenya because of the drought challenge that happened in Africa, especially the northern parts of Africa and part of Kenya. But our Refugee Act does highlight that there are only 3 ways that a refugee can get a sustainable way in which their issue can be resolved. The first one is repatriation. And repatriation is where an individual voluntarily accepts to go back to their home country. The next part is integration, and this is where a lot of focus is being placed on seeing how refugees can be helped to become self-reliant, and that's why we can see a lot of opportunities coming in with matters to do with even financial inclusion. And I know Boniface, when he arrives, he can speak more about what IRC is doing and also the micro-lending opportunities for the refugees, because we know that they've been having challenges in accessing services such as even getting accounts, getting money from banks. Aside from that, we have resettlement, which is, we know that's what majority of the refugees want, being resettled to other countries, especially the Europe countries. So efforts that are being made currently are just around those 3 aspects, both within the Kenyan government and also the international space.
So, you said the what is preferred is the integration bit, right? So refugees arrive, they get processed, they get integrated within a community that they're living. Or resettlement, if they are to move in and then they're just resettled. So it goes against that whole concept of having refugee camps. Are we saying that we should do away with refugee camps? What purpose do refugee camps serve in these 3 things that you've mentioned?
I think refugee camps would serve as an entry point first for the refugees, especially if we have an influx. But ultimately, because I know that the Kenyan government was also trying to do away with the refugee camp, but this discussion has slowed down for some period of time. And maybe it's also because of the high numbers of people that are in these spaces. And and with the hope that a refugee will not live in the country for a long period of time, they'll ultimately, the situation that made them become refugees in the country will cease, and they'll go back to their countries. Because that's also one of the things that qualifies a the refugee status to cease. If the status that led to you being a refugee comes to an end, you're supposed to go back to your country. So probably the refugee camps play the role of acting as spaces where they can live in temporarily in the country, but ultimately for those who have difficulties or those who do not have the hope of going back to their countries because of instances such as maybe their orientations or the social groupings that they belong to led to their persecution, it means that ultimately they'll have to find a solution in which they'll live in Kenya for a long period of time.
Because that has been the case. Have we seen situations whereby folks who come in as refugees have actually gone back to their countries? Because I know we've seen the others. I mean, seen a couple of stories of children who were born in refugee camps and today are 20 years old. So have we seen the opposite, whereby they've come in for a period of time, and through the process, like you said, because it's supposed to be temporary while things are being sorted out. So have we seen that the process has played out whereby every now and then folks can go back to where they've come from, also I guess depending on the reason why they left the original country.
I don't know whether Boniface would like to take that.
He's just coming.
Oh, he's just...
let the man breathe in.
Okay, yes. I'm not sure about the specific in terms of nationalities, but I'm pretty sure that we have context in which the situations in the different countries have changed, and individuals with the support of their government have been allowed to go back to their countries. But in terms of context-specific nationalities, that one I cannot really point a finger on it.
Okay, it's a good point then to introduce Boniface, who just joined us. Boniface Odhiambo is Economic Recovery and Development Coordinator at the International Rescue Committee. Good morning, Boniface.
Good morning, Latiff.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Pole, ulipotea wapi?
Hali ya Nairobi.
Okay.
You need to say no more on that subject.
Yeah, enough said.
We tunajua hiyo Nairobi.
Welcome to the conversation. And you just heard Irene, talking about the various refugees and their status and everything. As you respond to that question, maybe you can quickly just introduce us to the IRC and what the organization does.
Thank you, Latiff, and thank you for giving us this opportunity. For International Rescue Committee is an organization that majorly our main role is to support those whom their lives have been shattered either through violence, conflict, or displacement. And majorly IRC have worked in the country since 1992, and we have majorly supported refugees, and our area of operations basically supporting issues of their healthcare, inclusion, working closely with the government, and just to be sure that we promote cohesiveness and providing another life of chance for the refugees. So IRC, through its operation and also working with the different partners, including UNHCR, Pamoja Trust, and other actors, we have been working towards just ensuring that refugees get second chance. And today being the International World Refugee Day, we say that is hope away from home, because the opportunity that it presents is that this is the second home for the refugees who moved into the country. Some of them in the country for over 20 years. And we have also seen some more new arrivals coming to the country due to a result of other factors of climate change. So in talk of refugees, not just the issue of war. There are other reasons as to why people migrate and move to neighboring countries. And like any other person, you'll always want to move where there are better opportunities and where there is hope. And that is why today we speak about hope away from home.
What are you people saying? Let me just throw this issue out there so we can address it. Are you saying that we as Kenyans should accept refugees in our communities, start having them in our neighborhoods, integrating with them, mingling and mixing?
Very true. That's a conversation we should be having, because the fact that we have refugees in the country, or we have them in Kenya, it's not any different with me moving from my local home in Siaya and coming to be in Nairobi. So what the essence means, you need to be live together as neighbors, and you need to also feel the opportunity and also enjoy all the rights like any other human being would want to enjoy. So Kenya as a country has been very hospitable. We have seen also the government of Kenya making deliberate moves through laws and regulations to provide conducive environment for the refugees in the country. So we want to believe that with those progressive milestones that the government is making, and also Kenyans themselves also accepting our neighbors and the refugees who are living amongst them, is the essence that we appreciate the fact that they mean a lot to be part of us, and that's why we need to live together.
Boniface, the truth is, like you said, Kenyans are hospitable people.
Definitely.
Right? There are many people of different nationalities from across the region who are in Kenya, particularly Nairobi and then in the other smaller towns. However, there's profiling. As they live in the community, people say, those guys, they point them out. There's profiling.
Yes.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
That's a bad thing, just to speak to it, because one fact we need to live up to is that just the way we are even in this setup in the studio, we need each other in the conversation. So wherever we have our neighbors and wherever we have those who live amongst us, we contribute towards everybody's well-being in the society. I would want to mention that even within Nairobi city where we live, we find that many refugees are participating in other economic livelihood activities. And remember, when they get money, they'll buy their food stuff from the mama mbogas. They'll also pay rent wherever they need to pay. So in essence, when they do that purchase and contributing to the local economy, ultimately everybody gains. So we will need to accept the fact that having good neighbors and also having the integration with the refugees provides really a broader, benefit to us as neighbors, not just neighbors, but also as a community. It's also good to have a friend. When you have a friend next to you whom you can converse with, then you can chat with, that means you ideally have a unified community. Yeah, and I think the government also, you remember, had the Nyumba Kumi initiative, which we believe has really also come up with a better way of promoting better neighborhoodness, and which I also believe is an essence of just having one united people.
We'll go into a break shortly, and then I know CT has a question. But you as Pamoja Trust and IRC, Pamoja, you work very much in the local communities, right? And IRC, you deal with both spectrums. Have you ever engaged host communities to understand what they feel about these people who've moved into their neighborhoods?
Yeah.
What do they say? What do host communities say about these new people?
Okay, so there's a prejudice, we have to say that, because majority of the host communities do believe that the refugees have money, especially when you talk about the Somali refugees and the Sudanese refugees. But over time, as you begin engaging the community, you start breaking that kind of perception and attitude, because some of that information is misconstrued. That's wrongful information. And what we've been doing, especially at the community level, is a lot of sensitization on the Refugee Act, helping the host communities understand that refugee rights are human rights as well, and also reminding them that you're also one step away from also being a refugee. It also depends on the context in which your country is in. So today is Sudan, tomorrow probably it's Kenya, and you'll need to flee to another country and hope that they'll be receptive to you as well. So it's a lot of sensitization, and also telling the community some of these things that the refugees bring on the table. For instance, yesterday we had a session in Kasarani and Githurai communities, and we had a joint sports initiative with the Nairobi County Government Sports Department. And you could clearly see that the refugee groups, football teams, are very strong in terms of skill set. So this is already giving us an opportunity to see that they also bring in skills within the country, and there are also aspects that deal with cultural matters that can reinforce whatever we have as a country, and also what we do at our local levels on a day-to-day.
Let's take a break. 27 to 9. Irene Kinoti is a program officer with Pamoja Trust, and Boniface Odhiambo is Economic Recovery and Development Coordinator at the International Rescue Committee. Today, the 20th of June, 2023, is World Refugee Day, and the theme for this year is Hope Away from Home. And that's what we're discussing. Let's take this break. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
This is one of the hottest show that we can ever miss in the morning, and it's a show that really gives a real situation in the Situation Room.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you guys so much. Nduthai, nice meeting you. Yeah. Even beautiful in person more than in photos.
Say that again.
Character is like pregnancy, you cannot hide it. You know, people hiding here and there, you know, but after 2-3 months, 5 months, now you realize, so that is why the attitude that you are showing us, you're pregnant.
It's like what my grandmother would say, you cannot pickpocket a naked man.
How's that? It's communal, isn't it?
No comment.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Cloudy conditions still continue in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 25 and lows of 14. It's 16 and sunny in Nakuru, highs of 27 and lows of 15. 24 will be the high in a mostly sunny Nyeri at 15, and at 16 it's sunny in Eldoret, highs of 24 and lows of 13. Sunny at 25 in Mombasa, highs of 30 and lows of 24, and we'll see highs of 30 in a sunny Malindi at 24. 19 and cloudy in Kampala, highs of 27, and we'll see highs of 31 in a sunny Dar es Salaam at 26. 4 degrees, sunny conditions in wintry Johannesburg, highs of 17 and lows of 3. It's partly cloudy at 25 in Lagos, highs of 30, and we'll see highs of 31 in a partly cloudy Kinshasa at 21.
Chilled Spice.
All right, busy on Jogo Road this morning. It's inching closer and closer to the City Stadium roundabout, and then you'll get onto Landis Road without an issue getting towards the Kamkunji roundabout. We saw traffic on Langata Road. That has reduced significantly, but then we're seeing traffic on Raila Odinga Way heavy all the way through towards the City Mortuary roundabout. Incoming traffic from Gong Road is going to compound that a little bit as you're trying to get out through maybe Upper Hill, then through the city. It's going to slow you down a little bit. Aerodrome Road also coming off of Langata Road, not looking too bad, but it's going to bunch up a little bit at the junction. Speaking of bunching up, it's still continuing on the Thika Superhighway through Survey. A little bit coming in then from Garden City, so we'll just watch out for that. Limuru Road coming in from Ruaka and Kiti Suru, that still continues to be heavy. United Nations Avenue past the US Embassy, that is inching along towards Limuru Road. So let's keep an eye on it. We're in the middle of traffic hour. Let's see what happens as we get closer to 9. Spice FM KE on Twitter.
Intelligent talk every morning. Done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
All right, the conversation.
Mornings done right.
From Pamoja Trust and Boniface Odhiambo from International Rescue Committee on this World Refugee Day 2023. City.
You know, the discussion and the talk about the generosity of Kenyans, if I were not a Kenyan, I would find it almost mythical. I would say, surely can a people be that generous? But it's true, Kenyans are very generous. Kenyans are very accommodating. But it seems that applies to people who are our visitors, people who have come into the country. I wonder whether that applies to fellow Kenyans, because we've had IDPs in this country for the longest possible time. Have those matters been resolved? Here we are resolving matters of people who've come from other countries. And we are certainly looking into how best we can accommodate them. And if you look at the matters of the IDPs that we have in the country, it's because neighbors, not someone else who came from some other country, neighbors are the ones who descended on their neighbors and made life impossible for them to live in the place they had grown up and they'd been born in. have we resolved the IDP issue in Kenya before we start resolving these other issues of other people who have come into our country?
Thank you so much, for that question. I want to look at the context of IDPs, and I think we were heavily affected by the post-election violence, and all of us do appreciate that the government made a lot of efforts, despite a bit of prolonged process of resettling the IDPs. But one fact remains that the issue of IDPs continue to be a recurrent situation, not just because of conflict, but also we have had IDPs as a result of floods, other disasters, which contributes to our own citizens being displaced. So one thing that we appreciate that we have seen a lot of progress, and you also want to concur with me that even the government make deliberate effort to provide both short-term and about long-term initiatives, either could be through shelter or through could be also just getting alternative places where they can settle. But right now it's not very, I don't think that I have very clear understanding, but I presume that most of persons who are affected during post-election violence have gotten been resettled. Probably now we could be talking of the recurrent or the new emerging scenarios where people have been displaced either by floods or the conflict in the war-torn areas. We have had areas of West Pokot, Baringo. We have seen internally displaced persons because of the conflict that is going on there. So one thing that probably we may want to appreciate that humanitarian actors like IRC still have deliberate initiatives to provide support to these populations, and we will continue to work closely with the government just to see that it is resolved. But the issue of IDPs, we may still see them recurring because of the other natural effects or factors that contribute to that.
Okay. You mentioned the government, so I guess that's a good time to bring this question. When you talk about government participation in the refugee process, there's a host country. In this case, use Kenya or Ethiopia as the example. But with the issue of IDPs, with the issue of refugees, we see a lot of involvement by international organizations and non-governmental organizations. What is the role of host governments in the process, in all these processes through which refugees then are taken care of, from registration, protections, status, education, livelihoods, capacity building, resettlement, etc., and then resettlement or reintegration, beyond the agreement of hosts as hosts, beyond using internal mechanisms to push along a particular issue like registration or tax payments, things like this. We see a bulk of the support come from external sources. What is a government's role for the process of bringing in refugees, keeping them there beside the welcoming of parties?
Thank you. We have seen government play a major role. Actually, it's the main key, I can say, responsible entity to support the refugees. First, the issue of laws and regulations. If government doesn't allow and provide guidelines that accept, it's not going to happen. But then you find that the international community that are coming in and other international NGOs, our role is to complement the efforts of the government, because the resources are limited, they are constrained, but working very closely with the government. So we have seen a lot of progress, and I want to mention that we have the Refugee Act 2021 that the government enacted, which is provides a lot of hope that we are moving now towards integration and considering refugees as part of people within our economy. So the Refugee Act 2021, though I know regulations are yet to be passed by the Parliament, the Act is already there, but now the regulations that now will inform every bit of the process. It looking at providing, allowing refugees to formally get employed and also access, other key documentations that will enhance their inclusion and participate in our economy. So with those progressive laws, that comes in handy. The government also have also worked with the international actors and provided, when you look at the settlements where the refugee are, issues of security, issues of just ensuring that the welfare are well taken care of. We also need to talk about social protection and healthcare. You find that we have, also some of the refugees able to access NHIF, which we believe these are very progressive. If they are being included in our national system and processes, that to us acts as a plus because government has a voice in promoting that. I know we still have a long way to go because not all has been achieved as we may want to see that happen. But I know there are also ambitious plan. We initially it was called the Marshall Plan. It's called the Nashiriki Plan, which is looking at now getting out of the camps and now integrating refugees to live among the host communities, which I believe with the government being part and parcel of that process already provides a lot of hope and opportunity for us to really achieve the goal of integration and cohesion.
Besides integration, do you think the government of Kenya, because the government of Kenya hosts millions of refugees, it has hosted millions, right? Do you think we should get to a level where we give refugees citizenship status?
I know that's a question to look at, not just at the government, but I know it's also about the international community conversation. But one fact that and the role that the government ideally plays is first to consider the fact that the refugees have somewhere to call home. And we know before even they come to the country originally, they originated from their home countries, which we recognize they belong to certain nations. There were efforts and also initiatives to do voluntary repatriation for those who are willing to go back to their country. I think 2015, 2016, which some of the refugees voluntarily went back to their home. But in terms of citizenship, I think that calls for a lot of laws and the conversation that the government and key stakeholders need to have. But we believe more so of the high priority is the opportunity that we accept that they are part of us. We just provide requisite documentation to recognize their presence and allow them to participate in our local economy. To me, I think that's more important.
To do the things that they can do locally.
Than the government and relying on aid, donations and support. But we look at more durable solutions that can make them
the durable solution is making them citizens. So then they feel that they now belong somewhere. You know that thing of being in a neighbor's house, but you have some boundaries. There are things that you can do. They cannot work in our public service. They don't have the necessary documentation. They cannot run for public office. All those things there. But for us to fully integrate them, why not give them citizenship status? Irene?
When you talk about giving them citizen status, I think that's also some of the things that are being thought through when we talk about the integration aspects. But then we have the gap when it comes to the regulations. So post the development of the regulations, maybe we'll get a clear direction on matters to do with even after I'm integrated and I live for almost 30 years in Kenya, what does it mean for me? So looking forward, maybe when we look at the regulations, whatever they'll speak to and how they'll guide us, some of those aspects will be unpacked.
So, I'm imagining a situation, again, like I said, a child is born in a refugee camp and has lived there today is no longer a child, is 25, 26 years old, because that's the length of some of the camps have been open for that period of time, right? That's all they know. And it's not one story. It's not 50. It's not even 100 stories. It's many, many more like that. So I guess if we are looking at their plight and their situation, would there be some kind of, push to say, let there be some kind of permanency in their lives? Because as long as they've been here is as long as there has been a conflict or an adverse situation in the place where they are coming from. I mean, look, there would be an appetite, I'm almost sure, for some of these folks to want to go back home. But there's something that precludes them from doing that. The conflict is still alive, or even if it's dormant, the chances of it flaring up again are still there. And those reasons would make them leave again. So would there be something where there is a concerted effort to say that even if you have come into host country, Ethiopia, Kenya, as a refugee, because these are groups who are IRC, Pamoja Trust, UNHCR, who are working on policy with these different nations, with member states, to be able to come and say, look, guys, a situation where a refugee lives as a refugee for 26 years is not palatable. Can there be something else that can be done to say, if we look at the situation of the country where they have come from, and we know that in no time soon is it going to change, can we hasten this process whereby they live with some kind of permanency in the host country? Because these, unfortunately, have been living in limbo for 2-3 decades and have no idea. They don't know anything else. And so, I wonder... it's the responsibility of the state and the organizations who've chosen to be involved. But there can be a hastening of the process. I do not know how, but it seems to me that there could be something that could be done.
You know, what you're saying actually resonates with a statement that the immediate former president made when he assumed his position as president in 2013. He said he was going to end statelessness by the end of his tenure. And we actually saw 4 actually, being given citizenship. Okay, now, that's the president stating and saying, we have a policy, this is what we are going to do. We are going to make sure that these people who lived in our country for this long actually become citizens of this country. Deliberate effort. Now, sometimes we don't highlight these positive things that governments do, or people who've held the position of the president, but this was it. Now, the problem is never what a president does during his tenure, but the continuation of what has been started. Because it is a good thing. If somebody has lived in this country for as long as some of these communities have, it's clear they're not going anywhere. Because if they were going somewhere, they would have gone. And they're here. So how then do you ensure that inclusivity that we speak about is actually enjoyed by them? How then do we set a policy that someone knows that if I've been living in this country for this long, there's a process by which I can actually embark on being a citizen? So it's a clear path, so you know, this is the path I follow if I want to become a citizen of this particular country. Is it really clear? If I want to become a citizen of this country, I'm a citizen, but
as a refugee.
Let's say you were a refugee.
Yes, let's say I was a refugee. Okay, is there a clear path that I know?
You do 1, 2, 3,
and I wait for this long, and I can become a citizen.
I think that's the big question that we need to continue having and engaging the government, because the process of becoming citizenship in Kenya, I think that's well clear in terms of what confirms, because even by just birth, even our birth certificate clearly indicates that birth certificate does not mean it's you are a citizen of the country. But I look at this in more an open conversations, because we have seen a lot of our neighboring countries and the integration of the nations, like East African community, looking at bringing in common approach on how their citizenship or their citizens can enjoy their rights without being limited by the fact the borders and the boundaries. So for me is looking at now how can the countries that are hosting refugees, for example Kenya, And we look at also, we have neighboring countries like Uganda is equally also hosting quite a number of refugees. The conversation is, once they have come into the country, how are they being given or have laws or regulations that enables them to participate and support themselves without feeling excluded, without feeling limited. And that is the deliberate efforts that we make with the Pamoja Trust. And I want to say that even within our governance system or structure, where we have the county and the national government, we have, in the Refugee Act, there are some roles that the county government plays. And as we speak, we have a memorandum of understanding with Nairobi City County Government, and we have seen them also opening up and providing opportunities for refugees inclusion. One of them is that refugees now, when they have their refugee ID, they can apply for business permit. That's already a breakthrough. So when they're able to participate and do business within the city, it means they will not need to rely on the government or international community to continue supporting, but give them that opportunity to continue having their livelihood. So in the citizenship, I think then now we really need to unpack that maybe in the government, because it's very
probably
clear
the question is, Boniface,
yes,
as the IRC, have you helped any refugee acquire Kenyan citizenship? Or have you come across somebody who was previously a refugee who's now legally acquired Kenyan citizenship?
Not any I'm aware of as we speak.
Is this because of a lack of a proper law? Because the Constitution, I'm going to read Article 15 is on citizenship by registration.
Yes.
16.2 says, a person who has been lawfully resident in Kenya for a continuous period of at least 7 years and who satisfies the conditions prescribed by an Act of Parliament may apply to be registered as a citizen. So is it that there's an Act of Parliament that then that puts in stringent conditions that then lock out a refugee? Because there are refugees who've been in this country for 30 years plus.
Exactly. Not any that is coming in my mind clearly that we have an Act of Parliament that defines how to apply and become a citizen. Probably I need to make reference to that.
Or is it not your mandate?
For us, our mandate is ideally to support their inclusion, and also work with the government just to ensure that the services that they're supposed to receive, they continue receiving that. And we also just work with the government to support in terms of regulations. And I believe the Refugee Act and the regulations that are being developed currently, which IRC has played a critical role working with other agencies, may inform some of the decisions on how we can support the refugees to...
You see, your mandate falls right in, because the eventuality, the logical conclusion to this whole process is if there can be a clear path. So when you sensitize the communities who form what we call the refugee, you tell them that you've been in this camp for the last 9 years. There is this process you can follow. And this is what you could do. Or is it something you already do?
Good question, but just to clarify, the mandate to provide citizenship lies with the government.
No, the mandate to inform the people.
To provide support.
Yes, it's support. You see, it's just information. You are not giving them citizenship. You are telling them that it is a possibility that is available to them. Part of the same process that you have, meaning you could be a citizen of this country if you so wish. Some people may be here, but they do not wish to be citizens.
Yes.
Their wish is to go back to their countries.
Yeah.
So it won't apply. But for those who would wish, just the knowledge alone, it's something that you could provide, because some of them may not know.
And I think that's why we're going back to the regulations, because the Act already speaks about integration of the refugees, and the integration is trying to find a sustainable solution. And the questions about citizenship by registration also comes in whenever we talk about the regulations, and I know IRC has been key in this process. So after we've gotten the regulations and this specific answers, we can then go back and sensitize the community, because one of the challenges that we also face as institutions that work in the community is we cannot misinform the community. That's also a problem that we may face if in case we give them the wrong information. So we're still guided by the regulations, and we hope that the regulations will create a clear path specifically on that matter.
So currently, as far as you know, there's no clear path.
There's no clear path.
The only thing that we have now is integration on how we can support them, give them business permits like Nairobi County has done, allow them to go to attend schools, attend health facilities, be in business, live in neighborhoods, access financial services, all across the board.
Yes.
Okay. Job opportunities, there's a limit.
Job opportunities, actually, we do have ongoing conversation, because for refugees to work, they are required to have Class M permit, which ideally calls for, it's a bit of a process. The employer has to apply. But you see, for an employer to apply that, and there's a Kenyan probably also who have similar skills, they ideally
then the job
Kenyan.
permit.
So that's another bit of technicality.
Anyway, these are interesting conversations to have, and I'd like to have them again and again and again with you. Thank you very much for joining us today. Boniface Adhiambo is the Economic Recovery and Development Coordinator at International Rescue Committee. Irene Kenoti is a Program Officer with Pamoja Trust. We've been having a conversation about the day today. 20th of June is International World Refugee Day. Have a good morning. It's 9 a.m. Conversations continue.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is News. I'm Dennis Aseto. President William Ruto and the UN climate change chief have launched a working group to chart discussions on sustainable energy transition and climate finance in Africa ahead of the 28th Conference of State Parties later in the year. Ruto met Sultan bin Ahmed Al Jaber, the COP28 president-designate, and announced that the working group would focus on the just energy transition and unlocking climate finance to accelerating green growth in Africa in the lead-up to the respective summits, other than the COP28 to be held in late November in Dubai. The other summit referenced in the communique is the Africa Climate Action Summit to be held in Nairobi in September. The National Assembly will today begin its investigations on health issues. The Departmental Committee on Health will engage with the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority KEMSA to address alleged irregularities in the procurement process and the cancellation of long-lasting insecticidal mosquito nets. The development could leave millions of low-income households at risk of contracting malaria, a deadly disease that killed an estimated 12,000 people yearly in Kenya. And Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja unveiled a 1.2 billion shillings food subsidy program that is set to benefit 250,000 children in the country. According to Sakaja, there will be a construction of central kitchens within Nairobi for the school feeding program. The governor indicated that the kitchens will be constructed in Dagoretti North, Embakasi Central, Embakasi South, Kasarani, Kibra, Makadara, Starehe, Roysambu, Ruaraka and Westland sub-counties starting today. And the National Transport and Safety Authority has started a retest of all public service vehicles and commercial vehicle drivers. NTSA said in a statement that the periodic retest will be mandatory, conducted every 3 years before a driver renews their license. These classes comprise drivers of commercial and school buses, matatus and taxis. The retest are set to be conducted in all NTSA driver test units, and drivers will be required to apply online via their e-citizen account at a fee of 1,050 shillings. Now, Kilifi leaders are appealing to the government to fast-track the construction of Rare Dam in drought-hit Ganze sub-county. Speaking during the flagging off of food supplies to schools that are yet to benefit from the government school meals program, Ganze MP Kenneth Kazingu and Kilifi woman rep Gertrude Mbeyu said construction of the dam will alleviate the persistent water scarcity faced by the residents due to recurring drought. Kilifi County Commissioner Josephat Biwott pledged to bring on board leaders from the area and stakeholders to address gaps to ensure the mega project that requires 6 billion shillings is prioritized. Now, Kenya loses an average of 71 billion shillings in taxes annually as a result of the proliferation of the sale of illicit alcohol in the country. This is according to a report released by Euromonitor Consulting, which was commissioned by the Alcoholics Beverage Association of Kenya on the impact of illicit alcohol on the Kenyan economy. The report also reveals that the volume of illicit alcohol sales has recorded strong growth in value since 2020 to stand at 67 billion shillings, reflecting its wider distribution and increased preference, especially in low-income settlements. The popularity of illicit alcoholic beverages, which are often sold at a lower price than legal drinks, has been fueled by the non-compliance with tax and excise regulations. And former Mkuruweni MP Kabando has reiterated that media freedom is sacred and those aggrieved by its purported shortcomings should seek to use civil ways of airing their grievances. In remarks Monday evening in response to Trade CS Moses Kuri's derogatory description of National Media Group, Kabanda said the media firm is among media organizations that have over the years stood up against state excesses in defense of society. Without directly lashing out at Kuria over his uncouth remarks, in the spirit of comrades, Kabanda said the CS should have expressed his displeasure in a more civil way. And a miner aged 45 years drowned in a gold mine in Kurutiange village in Kuria West, Migori County. Kuria West Sub-County Police Commander Cleti Kimayo said the deceased, identified as James Robi Nyahure, met his death while gold mining. Kimayo said the police received a report from the area assistant chief and when they rushed the site, they found the body already retrieved from the mine, which was full of water. The Sub-County Police Commander said their preliminary investigation established that the deceased was epileptic and they suspect that he might have encountered the attack while inside the mine. This is News. I'm Dennis Asada. Good morning.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay, coming out of traffic hour, maybe in a half hour or so, but for now, a lot of traffic still in certain parts. We should be able to navigate that without too much of an issue. It's slowing down a little bit on the Thika Superhighway. We shouldn't have too much of an issue with that. Limuru Road is still catching up. We'll have some of that for some time, but Kiambu Road clear now. Coming into the city then from Jogoo Road is where we're still having some traffic. And then as you approach the Raila Odinga Way coming in from Langata Road, that has picked up again quite some. So let's see. We're probably getting to the end of it through most parts of the city. Talk to us on Spice FM KE on Twitter as we come to a close.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
7 minutes after 9. Good morning. Welcome to the final hour of the Situation Room this morning. 911 Group App. 911 Group has been in the country for more than 25 years. They're experienced in many things. They're experienced in installing car alarms and car tracks. They're experienced in having guard services. They're experienced in rescue vehicle. It's called what? Not rescue. It's vehicle recovery.
Rescue and recovery.
Yeah, those ones. They're experienced in all those things, and they now have come up with an app, and they say, download this app, because if you have this app, then you have access to us 24/7, and we can basically have conversations with you, and we can engage you and come to your aid at that hour or that moment when you need aid the most. So go to your Google Play Store or Apple App Store and search for 911. These are the numbers 911 and the words group. 911 group. Download it, install it on your phone, register. There'll be a quick registration process. Just register and peace of mind comes in. CT. When you talk about this country called Kenya, it also has proverbs.
Actually, it does. Many delightful proverbs that get your mind working.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of those proverbs I will tell you about now.
Mm-hmm.
The water of the river flows on without waiting for the thirsty man.
The water of the river flows without waiting for the thirsty man.
Mm-hmm. Functions of water. Uses of water. Benefits of water. If that water is nestled in a river and it's flowing, rivers by their nature flow. Well, be as thirsty as you like. That water is going to continue flowing.
Or if you're thirsty, don't think the water is going to wait for you to drink. You might as well catch on and have a sip as it's moving.
Thank you. It won't stand still and wait for you to drink, then it continues along its merry way. No?
Yeah.
It'll do what it does. And it's you to decide what you will do or how you'll take advantage of its existence.
Kweli kabisa. Now, there's something big that's happening in the country today, and this is in the halls of Parliament. The National Assembly will today finally deal conclusively with a finance bill. People have gone to school, they have learned the lawmaking process, from drafting a bill to taking it to Parliament to having the first reading, which is when it's first introduced to Parliament. When it's first introduced to Parliament, that's first reading. Then it's committed to a committee, and that committee then interrogates the proposed laws or the proposed law and engages the public. And this is the public participation stage. And then it's brought back to the Parliament with a report from that committee that says, okay, we have looked at this proposed law, we have engaged the people, and as a committee, we recommend that Parliament rejects this bill, or Parliament adopts this bill as is, or Parliament adopts this bill but with amendments here and there. And so people debate now the report of the committee. If they say no to the report of the committee, they've not said no to the bill. Well, if they say yes to the report of the committee, they've said yes to the report of the committee. And then it goes to the third reading, which is what is happening today with the finance bill. So today is when that whole conversation about the finance bill, this year, CT, like you've said, we've seen the finance bill become a big conversation. It's a big conversation. Why? People are now looking at taxation and issues and saying, surely Ruto is raiding all our pockets, bwana. Surely. Na hii economy,
the little we have, we want to take half.
Maisha is like this, and then now the government comes and wants now to take all our taxes with this bill of Ruto's. When you talk about that, CT, you want us to discuss this today.
I do.
The state of economy.
You know, the word that has now become commonplace, and the one word that is on everyone's lips is the word economy. If someone had heard of it as just a passing word, now it's entrenched. Everyone talks about the economy, and they categorize it: good, bad, favorable, unfavorable. But by and large, there seems to be an agreement that the economy is not good.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to extrapolate and extend it, you can in whichever direction. But even as we talk about it, it brings us back to this one little point. You see, decisions that are made to tax us are not made by an individual. Those decisions, for it, someone can say what they like, they can suggest what they like, but for it to be effective, it has to go through Parliament. And Parliament, we believe, is full of people whom we elected to go and represent us. So when we have something we consider uncomfortable or unpleasant, we believe that these people ought to have our pulse at heart, and they would know that these are things we do not favor. And so when it comes to them making that final decision, they'll make a decision that will be of use to us. Because again, even when people campaign to be elected, many of them campaign on an economic platform. Economic meaning, they say, I will do this for you in terms of development. I will bring this. I will build schools. I will build roads. Things which they actually can't do. But they say things that are of an economic nature. And then when people are judged, you will hear people say, you know, this particular member of parliament, this man understands economic issues. Look at the things he has done for us. And they'll point to development projects that have been brought about during the term of office of this particular individual. And then you would assume that perhaps this person keeps being elected against what we consider the popular narrative with our electoral process. People will say they vote for a party. Usually, no, they vote for the party where the kingpin whom they support is in.
Mm-hmm.
That is how generally our politics is. What's the popular flavor of that particular season? And they vote along that direction.
Yeah.
And they vote regionally depending on which particular kingpin and his party reign in that region. But every once in a while, something falls through the cracks, and someone who would be a rank outsider comes in and is elected. And the reason is economic. Case in point, ODM dominated western part of the country. There's one gentleman who just keeps being elected, Shabil Shakir. First got elected on an ODM ticket, and thereafter as an independent, keeps getting elected. We've had other people elected in other parts of the country. There's a gentleman called Mishra, Dr. Mishra, in the North Rift. Against all odds. I mean, this gentleman doesn't come from there, but he got elected. And the praises about the economic development that man brought were profound. And then come these elections, it's not as though the economic developments were not there, but suddenly he got not elected.
He was on the wrong side.
Precisely.
Not elected.
So you ask yourself, why is it that people vote? Is it for economic reasons? Is it for political reasons? But more importantly now, those who are elected have been elected. And yet we seem to have a problem with simply putting food on the table. So we're asking ourselves, how bad or how much worse will this economy get? So when someone touches on the price of what we call essential goods, essential commodities that we need, or when someone brings about the possibility of touching on the income that you have so that less of it gets to you, I'm afraid that discussion is something that people don't want to have, especially when you say you are going to enact it as a law and make it a must for people to pay. So the question that I'm asking is, really, when you talk about a bad economy, what is it about your daily life that points to the fact that this economy is bad for you? Or if you think it's good, what is it that you see in your everyday life that points to the economy being good? Is it the pronouncements that are made by the president? Is it the policies that the government has put in place? Is it the adverse weather patterns that we have around us? Is it COVID? Is it the war in Ukraine? What is it that affects you? What is it that you see in your daily life that, in your opinion, points to you and certifies very conclusively that this economy is not good for you? What is it?
What does it mean? What does it mean? When you hear people saying, the economy is bad, the cost of living is high.
It's interesting.
What do you understand them to be saying?
Yeah, I think that, it sounds nice when you say this economy or the cost of living is high. It sounds nice. And then maybe we're not actually...
It's like on Vogue.
Right, exactly. It's a buzzword. So everybody's kind of using it now because, it's what everybody else is saying. The meaning probably being misused, but the meaning from an individual point of view is that, you know what? In terms of the money I have or don't have, things are a bit thick at the moment. And it's being used as a blanket description or blanket definition for a personal situation that is going on at the moment. So if you look at what somebody had with 1,000 shillings a year ago, today, and what they were able to purchase and what they're able to purchase now, there's a difference, significantly. I don't think anybody can run away from that. But you see, when they say, hey, this economy is doing badly. Today I heard somebody say, my motorbike rider used to charge me 500 shillings from somewhere to Mombasa Road. And do you know what he said? I'm sorry, but because of this Ruto's economy, I have to charge you 600. Do you see?
Economy Ruto.
Yeah. So somebody has taken that definition and has applied it to their personal situation, whereby fuel is a little bit more expensive. The food that they would normally buy, or they would buy on a normal day, has become more expensive. If they had 100 shillings, they're not able to buy as much as they would before, or in order to buy that same amount, they have to add a little bit more shilling. So people are using these words to describe a situation that a lot of people are finding themselves in today, where the amount or the value that you would then be able to get from a certain amount of shillings, you cannot get anymore. Right? That is what people's understanding is of this economy. It's tough. If the government is also complaining that we just don't have enough right now, we're trying to work with having come back from this, having to deal with that and the other thing, don't have enough, the same then can be, brought down to a micro level where individuals and units are feeling the same thing. And that's what folks are using to describe the situation. I think it takes a little bit of the edge off when you're able to use that word everybody across, but it's a situation everybody's suffering from right now. It is.
And yet the clamor seems to be, if we had more money, meaning if you look at every Labor Day and what the government is expected to do and what the labor unions claim for, is that the people should be paid more. And I have to ask the question, should we clamor for a situation where more money is paid to you, or should we clamor for a situation where the money you actually have can buy you more? And then ask the question, how do you get to a position where the money you actually have buys you more? Because the fact that you actually increase the figures on your pay slip, does it mean you're able to buy more? The answer is no.
Okay, break it down, because I know you've had this argument a lot of times.
Yes, I have.
So let's say you have 1,000 shillings, all right, and you're buying 4 items. Pick whatever, doesn't matter what it is: oil, sugar, and then vegetables, all right, and then you have a little bit more for transport.
Throw in salt, please. Salt is very important.
Okay. You can have a bit of salt.
Like a bit.
No. Okay, so you have 1,000 shillings, all right?
Yes.
And you're saying, I cannot do bread is a story. I can't. Okay?
Yep.
If I'm going to have a hot something in the morning, it is going to be tea. It is going to be black. Milk is a rumor. We are going to have, whatever it is that we can have in the morning. And because this is the situation, we're not talking about a foreign situation. And then the rest of the money, we will have flour and we will have a veg that we'll eat in the evening. Lunch for a lot of people, rumor, right? Now you say, if you give this individual more money, the situation doesn't change. An argument would be, are you kidding? If you give me more money, I have 1,000 shillings. If you give me some 500 more, right? Maybe now I can have bread or I can have milk. You see, that is what a lot of folks will say. If you give me more money, the things that I am not able to have today, with a little bit more cash, then I can have. Do you see?
That's what it looks like,
exactly.
Actually.
Now, this is what I wanted you to do, so that break it down, so that we can understand when you say giving you more money doesn't necessarily mean that your situation is going to get better. If anything, it's going to remain the same. How exactly?
Actually, those who study economics will tell you it's what you refer to as the simple law of supply and demand. But let's look at a country like Uganda, which is predominantly arable. All the land is predominantly arable. In every discussion we've had about Uganda from the times when they had turmoil under Idi Amin, the one thing, irrespective of whatever economic turmoil we see around the globe, you do not hear of Ugandans facing a food crisis. Meaning they're able to feed themselves.
Yep.
Someone can wake up and they know they will be able to eat. So the question is, how do they do this? So let's come back to Kenya. Do we have people in this country who produce food that can be sold to other people? The answer is yes. So have we had situations where food is produced in this country and there's no market for them, as we have told, and there's food rotting in the field, or there's milk being poured out? Have we had this situation? We've heard stories of those things happening. Were they true? Yes, they were true. So how then do you get to a position where whatever is produced can actually find its way into people's table so that people can actually get food at a price that they can afford. This particular government has been talking about influencing production by ensuring that production costs are lowered. Now, let's break down that. If you bring down production costs, it means the finished product, which means that food item, by the time it is ready to be sold to someone else, it'll cost you less. Because part of the cost has to do with production. If you're talking about manufacturing, it's the same story. Where's the cost of electricity, cost of transportation? All these things add up. The eventual product lumps in all these costs when it comes to you. So if you reduce them, what then happens is that that particular item, whatever it is, will cost you less. Now, it's a question of how do you balance so that whoever is producing it also makes money because they have enough food for themselves. Then it takes us also to the question of maybe not all parts of the country are as arable as others or as productive. But is it possible for citizens to be involved in what you call subsistence farming so that they can actually feed themselves? And the answer would be yes. Because very many people who live in big towns like Nairobi, many of them don't survive with the food you have in our markets here. Food is sent to them from wherever they come from up country. That's what they eat here. Now, it is something that works, but we're talking about it now being upscaled to the point where the government ensures that there's a system where this happens. What am I saying? You have a lot more food being produced.
So are you saying if you give me an extra 500 shillings, I will not be able to do more with it?
In theory, you can, but for it to make sense, the very thing you want to buy has to be in such abundance that its price, the buying price, is not as high as it is. You see, everything plays in, everything we're talking about here influences the other. If your taxes, for instance, are high on fuel and most of the products we talk of have to be transported, whoever transports using fuel will add that additional cost that has been levied by the tax to the person who is going to buy that product at the end of that particular chain.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the cost always moves up, and the person who bears the brunt of it is the consumer, always. So how do you save the consumer, that is you and I who buy it off the shelf, from this cost? You ensure that the processes that go into producing this thing that we want to buy is reduced to the minimum. And one of them is ensuring that what we are buying is in abundance. That's one of the things. You make sure it's in abundance. If it's in abundance, then the cost of producing it is also low, to the point where when I'm buying it, it doesn't cost what all those additional costs added to it make it. It is lower.
Yeah.
Am I making sense or am I talking to myself?
So think value chain, basically.
Yes, think value chain. And that's something that the government, in reality, the government is in a position to do precisely that. The alternative is that of what we see, people finding ways of doing it on their own.
Okay, so now that's what I wanted to say. And because everybody, it doesn't matter what level of social strata you find yourself, that there's a complaint about how things have, gotten significantly tighter. It doesn't matter if you're what people will call middle class, higher class, lower middle. It doesn't matter. That there's something or there's some element of squeeze that has happened for you. So now, if you're saying that rather than ask for more money to be able to make this done, then folks have to be innovative in how you make what you have go round, or then look for other sources of this sustenance. Is that what we are saying?
No. I see what City is saying. I don't completely agree on do not increase salary. I mean, everybody wants to. You want to increase salary, not so that you can continue buying what you're buying, but so that you can have more disposable income to improve your lifestyle. So you can afford other things that you were not affording before, extras, not to buy the same items. But in order to do that, in order for the extra pay then to take you to a new level, the cost, the inflation has got to be checked. To check inflation, you're checking the cost of goods that you're buying. Now, the cost of goods that you're buying, what is it that's the impact is affecting the cost of goods? It's all the way from production to the entire value chain.
Okay, fuel.
From inputs to the the produce itself, to the market, to how it eventually gets to your shelf after processing, that entire value chain. So, well, Gerard Bitok was here earlier, and he could have mentioned the value chain approach that the government has with the counties as well. Looking at the entire value chain, for example, they are dealing with the value chain of pyrethrum value chain, the pyrethrum value chain, the textile value chain, the livestock value chain, and such value chains, and seeing how do you actually make sure that this thing is more effective and efficient. It brings in more money to the producer, and it checks the costs, because you have cut down on very many processes that are in between that are just adding costs. I get what you're saying, City. But now when people say hii economy, for example, who is this on YouTube who's saying maisha ni magumu sana hii serikali ya Ruto, ukweli natupeleka pabaya.
Okay, magumu, what does it mean?
Kufikia hivi sasa Wakenya wanakula milo moja tu jioni.
He has described it, has he not?
Hii haijatokea toka Kibaki, Uhuru, tuona kwa hii UDA.
Has he not described it? When someone says the 1 meal a day represents the ngumu maisha.
That's what now ngumu is.
Yes, 1 meal a day, which means he knows of people, and he may be one of the people who had more than 1 meal a day.
Yeah.
At some point.
At some point. Now they can't. Much as they may want to, the 1 meal a day is what they can afford. So that represents economy mbaya.
Yes.
You know, the discussion that Eric has begun, it's already being operationalized. Because there are very many people in this country who produce foodstuffs, who bypass the so-called market setups that we have, markiti as we call it, and can sell directly to the consumer. There is a system. We have systems where people who actually farm will not go to the market. There'll be a day when you can find them in certain places where they will sell directly to you. Now, if you formalize it and you bring in the county governments into the discussion, given just how diverse our counties are, and given what it is that some of them specialize in producing, it is very, very possible for there to be inter-county trading. We don't actually have it. It's informal in the sense that it's specific businessmen or business people who will get involved in this. But the county is a government. There's nothing stopping counties from engaging other counties so that they can benefit from something that one county is better at. Nothing. But there's also nothing stopping the counties from being involved in ensuring that the people in their county, and there is no county which doesn't have an agricultural ministry. Nothing stopping them from ensuring that enough food is being produced within their counties for their people to eat, instead of looking to the national government all the time.
All the time.
Because what then does the agricultural docket do? And it exists in every county. What do they do?
Yeah.
If we're having this conversation about there not being enough food, or the food that is there is very costly, the question has to be asked, what is that particular ministry? What is that docket? What is their main purpose? You can't have a ministry whose functions and output cannot relate directly to the benefit of the Mwananchi.
And then you talk about it, your cost of living. So let's take a break. 29 to 10. We'd like to hear from you on 0719-012-600. When you say that hii economy ni mbaya, the cost of living is high, maisha imekuwa ngumu, hii Kenya tunahama, what exactly do you mean in your contexts, right? What exactly does that mean? How would you translate it directly? Is it that you are not able to afford things that you were affording before? Is it that you've moved to a cheaper house? Is it that you've moved your children from one school to another? Is it that you are going to the market and what you're spending now is less? And what does that then mean? Are you eating less? What exactly does it mean when, because we're having this as a national conversation, high economy. In fact, nowadays you want to start a conversation, na economy bana. You don't even have to say anything more. Na economy. Sasa unaona hata ameongeza bei ya unga. Unaona hata sasa amefanya. What exactly do you mean? Let's hear from you after we take this break with the weather and traffic.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
London Mulwa DJ Absolute. When the gang is together.
Got the sugar, got the spice.
Yorada. Yes.
I have missed you like hot hamburgers.
Like hot hamburgers.
You know, bad boys give more money than you can count.
Hey, bad boys get more money than you can count. If it's fun, it's funky, it's fresh, you're definitely going to catch it here. I don't know what you do every day from 11 a.m. to 3 o'clock, but if I were you, I'd tune in to
Sugar and Spice only on 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 18, highs of 25 and lows of 14. It's sunny at 18 in Nakuru, highs of 27 and lows of 14. We'll see lows of 15 in a partly sunny Nyeri at 17, going to highs of 24. It's sunny at 18 in Eldoret, highs of 24 and lows of 13. At 26, Mombasa is partly sunny, highs of 30, and we'll see highs of 30 as well in a mostly sunny Malindi at 28. At 23, sunny conditions in Kisumu, highs of 29, and highs of 28 in a sunny Kakamega at 23. Cloudy conditions at 22 in Kampala, highs of 27, and 30 will be the high in a sunny Dar es Salaam at 27. 5 degrees and sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 17 and lows of 3. And it's mostly cloudy at 25 in Lagos, highs of 30. 33 will be the high. 31 will be the high in a mostly cloudy Kinshasa. Let's look out into Beijing, where it's 32 and sunny going into early evening Tuesday. And at 19 degrees, Paris is mostly cloudy. It's raining heavily in London at 18. And at 19 and partly cloudy Monday night in New York, we'll see highs of 24 and lows of 16.
Spice up your life.
All right. Looking at better traffic situation as you go through the morning. Most of this has depleted as you're going in and out of the CBD. A little bit left on Uhuru Highway as you're trying to approach the center. But apart from that, it's looking pretty good. Even the traffic on Kiambu Road, much less than it was before. Everybody just trying to get through that neck at Muthaiga Square. Traffic hour essentially is over. Through the morning, however, talk to us on Spice FM KE on Twitter.
Business News with Spice FM.
I'm Dennis Aseto. A court in Nairobi has stopped the takeover of TransCentury by Equity Bank over debt. The firm informed its shareholders and the public that the injunction took effect immediately. It argues that the lender illegally appointed a receiver while they were still engaged in negotiations, saying it breached the law. Remittances from Kenyan exports abroad increased by 9.9% to 49.32 billion shillings last month, pushing up the country's foreign current reserve. The latest Central Bank of Kenya data shows that money sent home was 4.5 billion shillings in June, up from 44.83 billion shillings in April. Inflows helped strengthen the country's usage foreign exchange reserve to 1.04 trillion shillings as of June 15th, enough to cover 4.11 months of imports. The Kenya Mortgage Refinancing Company has 3 new non-executive directors following the retirement of previous office holders. They include KCB Managing Director Anastasia Kimtai, Kasia Capital Partners Imtiaz Khan, and High Court Advocate Jen Mwangi. The appointments are awaiting approval from the Central Bank of Kenya. In their roles, Kimtai, Khan and Mwangi will provide independent views on business, governance and the boardroom. For Spice Business, I'm Dennis Aseto.
Spice FM Business. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The economy is hard. Life is hard. What was that we heard in the morning? Earth is hard.
Earth is hard.
You know? Earth is hard. You know, the cost of living is high. You know, we can't survive. What exactly does it mean in your context? What does it mean? Let's have that conversation. Let's hear from you. What does it mean? Because, like we've seen a comment here, somebody saying, you know, I could afford 3 meals a day. Now I can only afford 1 meal a day. That means something. Sith says, for real, life is hard. Nabado, but I do have faith that the money that is being collected will make a change. For real life is hard. But then, Seth, you haven't said exactly what does that mean?
What does it mean when you say life is difficult? I think that's the question that we're asking this morning. Because it's good to get a snapshot view of what folks are really feeling. Does that mean that, what you were able to afford 6 months ago, you cannot? That you had 3 meals a day a year ago and that you don't do that anymore? You can't afford to use transport all the time. At some point you must walk, cannot use your vehicle anymore because the cost of fuel has risen significantly. What does it mean when we say life is hard? What does that mean exactly? Because usually it has an economic tone to it. There's some it's monetary in terms of its makeup and structure. So what does it mean when you say that life is hard? What does that mean?
It's important to have this conversation so we can all say the same thing, and we are not mixing up messages, because presumably the person that you'd like to get this message is the person who has got the purse strings, is the person who's got the power to make laws, is the person who's got the opportunity and the power to formulate policy that then changes things around. They may understand one thing to mean completely different thing.
And it impacts people differently. For some people, you may have a plot you wanted to sell and you know what you bought it for. And you are offered a price and you look at it and you say, no, I'd rather not sell this plot. And what does it mean? Does it mean that the person was taking advantage of you, or does it mean that's what they could afford to pay? Or, as Ndu has mentioned, you had a car, forget not being able to drive it. You're thinking whether it's best for you to sell it. And then you go and ask someone who says they're willing to buy it, and they offer you, and you say, I think I'd rather just park this car. Or you are living in a certain establishment, and you suddenly find that this estate, you can no longer afford to live here. Why? You are living in town, and you find I cannot live in town. It's best I go back to my rural home. How exactly has this bad economy affected you? And what is it that happens in your life, in the lives of people around you and people you know, that indicates that life isn't what it was, it has changed simply because of these changes in the economy?
Yes. Things have changed.
Yes, they've changed.
And also, things often do change.
Yes, they do change.
Even in those days when, we're talking about the Kibaki era, the Kibaki years, the golden years of Kibaki, not everybody was feeling it.
No.
Not everybody was feeling it. There were those who, yes, life improved, they got job opportunities, they got promotions, they had a bit of disposable income for one thing or the other. And then there were many who also were just not being able to make ends meet. Right? For one reason or the other, they have no income, they don't have a job, or the job that they have, or where they live, the cost of living. That's a point when, if you just look back and you see, as the middle class, so-called middle class was exploding, it's the same time that the so-called Kadogo economy was also exploding. And the Kadogo economy, what does it mean? Kadogo economy is where you're looking at one thing as whole, and then it's broken down. If somebody is going to buy unga, they only buy unga that feeds their family for that one meal, and they buy cooking oil that just fits that one. They buy kiberiti moja. You buy things that just sort you out for that particular time. Why do people do that? It's because one of the reasons is because they can't really afford the bigger thing.
It's interesting. Eric, you've actually begun a chain of thought in my mind that takes me back even to the Moi era. These structural adjustment programs that saw people, mid-level management, being retrenched and being given money.
Yes.
See, what then happened is that you got people whose level of knowledge into what we call the hidden economy. You got them into the Juakali sector. And if you look at what the Juakali sector has become over time, and the mix and match that business climate or the business feature in that particular economy has, you've realized that this so-called Juakali sector is no longer really Juakali. It's actually mainstream businesses. And you look at how they have grown. Take, for instance, the idea of a salon. I remember the days when to have a haircut, and all haircut places were on River Road. Okay, you went to this place where they cut your hair. It was a process. And once they finished, there was a fly whisk, okay, which it slap you with the top of your head, and that was it. Now look at what it now is. It's no longer just a place you have your hair cut. You have your hair cut, your hair is washed, all sorts of services.
You continue.
You have your feet washed. Yeah. You manicure, pedicure, okay? But look at where it's also located. You have an eatery. You have a place where people go for a drink. Suddenly, the very services that you had to go somewhere for are available in this same place.
All self-contained.
And your car can be washed.
Yes.
But there's also a small shop where you can... Now, I'm calling it a Kenyan invention. You no longer just go to get one service in one place. You go to get fuel, and suddenly there are very many other services that are available to you.
Yeah.
It's an innovation that is born out of the need and that very growth that you're talking about. But that Kibaki era, the people who seem to have benefited the most were people who are salaried. Because the moment you had a pay slip, you could access money in ways you could not access it before.
Yeah.
So it was possible for you to do things that previously were actually not possible. But the Kibaki era did not have COVID. The Kibaki era did not have the Ukraine war. And when we say COVID, because COVID didn't affect Kenya, COVID affected the economy of the entire planet. And the ripple effect arrived at our doorstep. So now we have a government that is dealing with the aftermath of this thing that we all talk about. And one is seeing how best... So we're judging them on how they're coping with what landed at their doorstep.
It's a coping mechanism.
It's a coping mechanism. How are they managing this? Because they found it.
Indeed.
And they have to manage it. And they're the government.
Let's see what some folks are saying this morning. Frederick Courier says, hard for who? Life is sweet for all the new MPs with the lavish new cars and police escorts. We are all equal, but some of us are more equal than others. Well, all right. How about, jumping out of the blocks? Chumzi says it means supermarkets and marketplaces are getting emptier. That's very interesting. That if you walk into these establishments, you'll be able to get in and out without an issue.
They're no longer long queues.
Foot traffic is not an issue. Cost of living has risen in general, according to Rashid. Electricity, food, fuel, etc. Current policies just added fuel to the fire, but situation piled up since Corona started. Isaac Wandera is talking about industrialization, but let's look at what Dave says. I grew up eating 1 cup of porridge a day until another day to come in the Moi era. Now that era is knocking on Kenya's door again. Leo says, in my family, bad times means I take supper only and walk to work as I leave the available food for my kids. We also moved to a smaller house and reduced on consumable expenditure.
Wow.
Austerity measures kick in.
Harrison is saying he used to travel a lot using boda boda. Now I prefer walking long distances to work so I can save for food.
These are real situations. So that's what I said. When you talk about the economy being hard or cost of living having shot through the roof, it is people's personal experiences with what they're no longer able to do, what we are no longer able to do that we would be able to do previously. That you can't afford as much as you would. Luxury is out the window. That doesn't even happen for a lot of people. It never did. But now the situation has been compounded a lot more just because of the tightening that you feel. I mean, just like you said, COVID, it tightened things quite a lot. People lost their jobs. Hundreds of people lost their jobs in Nairobi. We're not even talking about the day COVID was announced. This was very interesting to me. The day COVID was announced, and rather, the first case of COVID, that Friday, Kenya shut down. And that Sunday, Kenya shut down. Everybody, not some, everybody in the entertainment industry lost their jobs. Everybody who was on casual labor or casual staff in restaurants
lost their jobs.
Not come tomorrow, lost their jobs. It was done. They now had to start looking for ways to survive. People who were suppliers for educational institutions lost that livelihood. It was out the window because there was no school for the next 9 months. All right? People who then did transport, out. People who worked on contracts for transport, out. Those things actually happened, and immediately people had to make adjustments to the way they lived. Because now, essentially, and it's true, it sounds so standard, but that's true, that money was not flowing through because people were not moving. It took some time to not even get back. I say a lot of nations have not gotten back from the effects of COVID. But when you start to stand, you still have people who've not been working for 2 years. And we're reintroducing a situation whereby things are still dire. This year is when entertainment, or what you would call extracurricular activities, resumed in schools. Now is when people want to try and get back. Somebody's talking about taking a cup of porridge in the morning, and that is it until you come back. That is the reality.
Yep.
So people's reality for an economy being hard is that their pocket is not able to cover what they would previously have consumed 2 years ago. 2 years ago. So economy being hard is actually, yes. The economy of your pocket is very difficult. It's damn hard right now. It's a reality. We can't gloss over it. Neither can we call it what it's not. Neither can we say that people are pretending, oh, stop it, you have money on your mattress. No, people don't have.
You have to actually acknowledge that the fact is, this is what's happening.
Yes.
You know, this is the first time in the history of mankind that countries have faced such hardships. They are economic turmoils that people have faced with the 2 world wars that we know of. And even when we had problems in the Middle East, the countries of Iraq, that war that raged then, one can only imagine what is a citizen of that country had to go through to get to a point where there's what they call normalcy. You look at Lebanon right now, what is going on there? There's nothing normal or pleasant about it. Look at Syria. You look at the eastern part of DRC, just closer to home. And look at how that now is spilling into Uganda. There are situations that you cannot consider normal. And when people wake up with a certain level of uncertainty, it's real because you do not know what's going to happen next. And the people who are looked up to are your leaders. How exactly are they going to ensure that you are protected? How are they going to ensure that there is normalcy, that there is peace, that there's a feeling of security? We've had that same discussion with the North Rift. Today I'm looking at the media and you were saying the guns have quietened. People talking about, you know, this is shocking. We've gone a week or two and we haven't heard of anybody killed. Now, there are parts of the country where this is normal. People don't get killed on a daily basis. And you talk about a part of the country where this was normal. Every other day someone is killed or some people are killed. Now, if you add on top of that, when we had heavy rains, people were displaced in some of these same areas. You couldn't even get there. You couldn't even get help to them. And then now you throw in the issues of commodities. They, on a daily basis, they can't go on with their normal lives because of insecurity. Weather and its vagaries come and affect them further.
Remember locusts as well.
Oh, locusts now came and just made sure that whatever was bad became completely worse. Okay? And these are people who are in the same country as us and are having to survive on a daily basis. And then you now throw in the ravages of the economy. Now, I look at the ravages that we have and I say they're akin to actually a state of war. Why do I say this? When everything you know is turned upside down and there's turmoil all around you and you're trying to figure out how to right yourself, it means you're faced with an enemy you don't know what to do with. You don't know how to combat this enemy well. Every time such situations have faced countries, they talk about austerity measures. And the first place you witness austerity measures is with those in leadership. Meaning things that were normal, not the tea and mandazi thing. That is almost an nonsensical discussion. It's the optics that are bad. But you look at how the government goes about its business and you realize, hey, there's austerity here. The way the leaders travel, where they go to, how they go to it, everything about it is less. But when you have a situation where we're looking at our economy and we're saying, in the same time period between September and March, in the Uhuru era, the first thing that we did was we overshot our budget by 400 billion. Then you look at this current government, you're saying, well, they haven't overshot it by 400, they overshot it by 800 billion. The question is, are you looking at the figures or are you looking at the why? Because the why has to be asked if you're to have an honest conversation. 2013, the situation on the planet and in the country was very different from 2022. Very, very different.
True.
Completely different. But then the reality is, here we are.
We've got things that are forcing us to make certain decisions.
Yes,
right?
which didn't exist previously.
Which didn't exist previously.
Yes.
I think the biggest thing, there's somebody who's commented there and said, Kenyans are a truly resilient lot. Right? So people are waking up today. People are making the adjustments. Move your family to a different neighborhood. Move your children to a different school. Adjust your lifestyle so that you're able to live another day, right? And this is clearly visible. Adjust. You used to have mandazi at tea time at 10 a.m. Now you've just stopped that. You're only doing meals at mealtime. Or you're even reducing that middle meal, or one of the meals, you're dropping one. People are making those adjustments. What they want to be hearing is those in leadership telling them, this is the situation we are in. There's hope of coming out of it on the other end, and this is what we are all doing together. There's an opportunity that the leadership is actually squandering. All leaders, whether those who are in parliament, in the executive, in the minority, in the majority, all of them are missing this opportunity. That this is what we are doing, this is what we can do to walk this journey together. This is what will happen so we can all get there together. Even if we're talking about we have got to raise more revenue by increasing the price, the cost of fuel, and the fuel then will affect all of us. But then this is what we are doing to cut back on what we need to, But when people are doing all these things and then they don't see like a government is doing the same, those are the things that now start irking people.
But it's the optics, you see.
It is.
Whenever in the public domain you hear budget allocations, what money is being budgeted for, you ask, okay, how exactly is this an austerity measure?
Yeah.
How? Austerity measure means you cut down, not increase or maintain. That's what it means. You cut down. And in fact, austerity means you cut down drastically.
Reduce.
Yes. Now, there may be a very good reason why you haven't reduced it, but the optics, when in the same country, same people who are supposed to have the same rights as everybody else cannot afford a meal that they used to afford, surely, should this not be of a greater concern to us, that these people can actually afford a meal? And even when you say that attempts are being made to ensure this happens, so long as we don't see what is being done and we don't see the effects, it is as good as it not being done. The idea of fertilizer is a very good idea. The idea of making sure the cost of production is actually lowered, believe me, it's a fantastic idea.
It's a good idea.
But it's in the future.
There's a now need.
Yes. What are we doing about the now need? Because the now, some people may not be alive by the time that thing works. It's good. It's a very good idea. It's laudable. But what about the now? And the majority of the people who live in this country are living in the now. See, they don't know what tomorrow holds. Forget next week, forget next season. Today, yes, now is a problem. And tomorrow is a really big problem.
It's a big one. Chris says the people who are currently happy in Kenya are our politicians. Everything is taken care of for the next 5 years or so. Their salaries, their allowances, all guaranteed from our taxes. And it's a big thing. I think this one is calling himself free in Christ, himself or herself. Well, I saw an increase in the number of Kenyans who are now boarding the trains to town, just like I used to while going to school in Makadara in the 80s and 90s. This is, to them, what is actually representing change. That there's all those changes. I think the bigger frustration comes in when, like Kuria is saying, when you even see that the budgetary allocation to Parliament is increasing. To do what?
For what? For what? When you see
You've increased that by some 25 billion shillings to go to Parliamentary Service Commission.
Okay.
For what?
For what exactly?
The presidency is going to spend not the presidency. State House alone is going to spend 11 billion shillings next year.
For?
We have
to
do
have what exactly?
Yes.
What exactly is it that will... Could you not have cut back? So when people here look at all these things, they're thinking, you guys are just living large.
Well, you're not even living large. You're living in another galaxy. You're not here with actually seeing. You're not in tune with what's going on here. You know, when you want to create positions, completely tone deaf, you're not even in the same concert.
In fact, I saw somebody reacting. Did you see Senator Nyamu posted that she had gone for Father's Day, she had gone to a shop to buy a drink for the father of her child. And the drink was costing, was it 40,000 shillings?
A bottle.
A bottle?
You really need to know that.
See, and that's the thing, that you're posting this, that you're gloating how
do we really
you
need
can
to know
spend
this?
40,000 shillings to buy. It was 420. 420,000 shillings.
Do we really
a
want
bottle of
to
a
know
drink.
this?
And we know the job that you do, the salary comes from the taxes that I'm paying. The taxes are going up, which means that it's affecting my disposable income. That means I cannot even afford 48 bob. What's your 400?
I can't afford 20K.
I can't afford 42
those are the
shillings.
optics that we're talking about.
You know, people aren't walking long distance for their health. Okay, they're walking because they can't afford to travel in any other way.
Yeah.
Okay. So it means people who are in the business of repairing shoes are going to have big business. That is, of course, if the wearer of the shoe has money to pay for the repairs of their shoes.
Imagine. And then that's the lifestyle that you're flaunting.
That we pay
in front
for.
of us. And you're seeing all this conversation and, you know, a fight between two leaders over a 120 million shilling house.
Surely.
And, you know, I was going to get a mortgage.
But why?
And 90 million.
Million.
And there are people who do not know what they're going to eat today.
Today.
Yes.
Today.
In this same country.
Yes, today.
Our leaders are tone deaf.
And some of them are people who could afford 3 meals a day. And now that's where they're at.
Yeah. Totally different auditorium.
Thank you for participating in the conversations. Thank you for tuning into the Situation Room today. We wish you a lovely day. We'll be back tomorrow. Good morning. It's now 10 a.m.
Spice up your life